Even now, some 2 decades later, you can't help but ask, what was she thinking? What was it that drove schoolteacher Mary Kay Letourneau to begin a secret affair with her 12-year-old student, Vili Fualaau? Mary said it was true love, but no one else saw it that way. She was jailed twice and even had 2 children to the underage Vili. But somehow the relationship endured. Remarkably, they're still together today. Here's Matt Doran.
Let me ask you about you two. When did you first meet Vili?
Meet? Well, I met his brothers and older sister before I met him. So there are 4 in his family. And then the first time I was familiar with the name Vili Fualaau, gosh, I don't know, 1989, 88, not sure.
Was that when you were here, his year 2 teacher?
He was one of my students back then. I hardly remember. Of course, I remember his name. So, and I knew the Fualaau family because I knew the other siblings. Mm. So, before, and then here came a unique one. So, well, they're all quite unique, as any family, I think, all the siblings are unique.
This will be a test of your memory, Vili. I mean, you would have been 8 or so back then. Do you have any memory of those years?
I have, not really, good memories, but some of them are just random, just pretty much random stuff.
What sort of memories?
I remember hiding in the closet. There was a closet in the classroom, and then me and my friends, we used to be in there hiding in the classroom.
From Mary?
Why don't you say what you were doing hiding in the closet?
Just hiding in the closet.
No, what did you tell me you were doing?
Well, that's weird to talk about right now.
Which only makes me want to know about it even more. Go on, Mary. What was he doing in the closet?
Yeah.
Oh, this is what you said to me is yeah, we'd hide in the closet and we'd hope you'd walk past so we could look under your skirt. I'm like, what the heck? I mean, who's tells years later, is that what you told? It is what you told me. Mm-hmm.
Does that make you feel better?
No, I'm just saying.
Do I need a pause for mediation here?
No, I'm just saying it was what does he remember? That's what he told me he remembered. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, right.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah. There's also 2 or 3 girls in there that liked me, and I used to get these weird messages from them, little notes.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
I thought I was so aware. I had no idea there were closet. The closet spanned the whole side of this, so it's not just for the visual.
Hmm.
And there were these big, giant, from bottom to top, the doors. All right.
Well, it's fair to say Mary had your attention, I believe. What? This is a tough question. What first attracted you to Mary? Can you remember?
She was pretty, and yeah, I think that was it. And then, I don't know. I kind of like that she drew a little bit. She taught some art stuff, and I thought that was kind of cool. And then I think in 6th grade we kind of connected on certain things. Kind of saw common views on stuff, life, and
similar interests.
Yeah. So,
Mary, when did you first realize I have feelings for a student?
Probably. Well, first of all, he wasn't my student when any feelings. So, which I think is really important. Here, it was very important for here in the United States, in the state of Washington, it was really important for it to be put out, I guess politically and a lot of legislation. It was important to portray it as if it was a student-teacher relationship, but it really wasn't. So even though once upon a time, even you ask, well, when did you first? Well, I feel kind of awkward answering that because it's sort of wanting to connect it to this was a student-teacher relationship, and which is really big in law, and doesn't matter supervisory.
She's basically saying it was like sometime.
So it was after.
Yeah.
So I am saying
Summer.
that. I was taking college classes for my continuing education, for my certification in teaching. You have to have it every 5 years. You got to update. So, or else they pull your certification. So, and the same in a lot of industry professions. You have to do continuing education. I had classes. He was also in a class at the same college. So for summer, so yes, it was summer school, but it was a class in the summer.
Let me ask you, Vili, in a different way. At what point did this morph, I guess, from teacher and former student to boyfriend and girlfriend?
Just a friendship, really. And then during summertime, things just got a little closer, and there was some I don't even know how to say it, dramatic stuff going on, drama.
Really? What?
There was plenty of dramatic stuff going on.
I don't know, there was a lot of things that kind of just led to us kind of connecting on a deeper level, and then it got even more wild, crazy once the police found out and her husband found out. And I think
we spoke to each other as if in that summer we felt like it was boyfriend, girlfriend. And that's why, I guess that's what there wasn't a teacher, when you consider we were in the same college, we both took an art class at the same college, and I think it felt really great. I'm just saying it felt great because we were so close as friends. And then just to not be his teacher in any capacity, and to be friends, and to be working on the same projects just on the same level. It just felt great. And just saying, I don't know what was dramatic going on, but I mean, inside of us, probably, yeah. When when we realized, I don't know, you called me your girlfriend. I
did.
Yeah, you did.
It's best not to argue. It's best not to argue, Vili. This is my experience.
Now it's my husband. Yeah.
When Mary did Vili make it clear to you that he was interested in you physically, sexually, I guess? Can you remember that moment? You must remember that moment.
I just remember, yes, there was one point, and I said, put that away. I just meant the idea. And there's a story about that. I don't know how much time we have, but.
How did that idea manifest, Vili? What did you say?
I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, I appreciated, this is a wrong word, but there was a moment where he said that he did say he was in love with me, and it scared me, and.
That was before anything physical between you both? He said he was in love?
Oh, yeah. Like, I don't know. Yeah, like weeks, a month.
Did it feel like love to you back then, Vili?
Yeah. I mean, for anyone, yeah. It's what you would, I don't know, for me, yeah. I mean, for anybody, first time, figure out what love is for the first time, that's all you know. So for what I know that it was back then, yeah, I would say that that was real love.
It's just such an exciting feeling you get, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's the Pied Piper of R&B, y'all. Whoa, follow me. Chicago and them. Oh, yeah. Don Juan and them. Yeah. This is for y'all. The remix. Said I know that it's somebody's
The Pied Piper of R&B to the Pied Piper of Puget Sound, talking about Mary Kay. Katherine Massey Book Club at the context of white supremacy. Sing it, Aura. Our fourth installment, Gregg Olsen's If Loving You Is Wrong. We are picking up on chapter 27. Importantly, we left off last week. We found out the neighbor said that mommy and daddy, talking about Mary Kay and Steve, say mommy and daddy fight about the brown boy. I said that should have been the title of the book. Last week, I think it was several of our participants mentioned a interview that was done before Mary Kay transitioned with she and her victim, Vili, on Australian television. The full interview is about an hour, 20 minutes. It's on YouTube. It is fascinating, as many folks said. So since it was mentioned repeatedly last week, I said, why not listen to a teaspoon of it? You got to hear about a good 10 minutes or so, and there's even more juicy tidbits if you continue listening. Maybe we'll hear some more as we continue through the book. You heard them start off, and she's going back and saying, hey, you know, what do you remember about the first time you met Vili back when he was 8? And she's talking about that time period, and, you know, Vili, do you remember the story? He says, oh, man, it's a little awkward. I don't know. He says, oh, no, you got to tell it. See? And she said, he doesn't even say anything. She says, let me take over. He used to go in the closet, look up my skirt. You know, they say I had them great legs. He would go in there and be looking up at my skirt. See? Looking up my skirt. Got Vili up there all embarrassed and whatnot. Is that true? Is it not true? Like, come on. And you can see, she is enjoying this. Like, yes, see, he pursued me. See, he was the deviant. I was the sex symbol. See, I told you I had them great legs. See? But see, he was pursuing me. I'm just trying to teach, and got these old non-white ogres in here ogling me all day long. See? She said, when white fella doing the interview, says, do you remember when you started having feelings for him, your student? He says, whoa, wait a minute. Vili, at the time that we fell in love, he was not my student. He was my student when he was 8, but that had passed, and he was not my student. She says, matter of fact, we were taking classes at the college. We were almost co-ed. See, I told you, on his birth certificate, he may have been 12, but spiritually, he was more like a non-traditionally aged college student of about 45, you see. He was not really 12. See, he was not a victim. We were co-eds. We've taken classes and, you know, all that good stuff, see. Not my, now, anybody with 2 cents worth of brains, you are at the school as a 30-year-old teacher, you come home and say, I got a boyfriend. Who is your boyfriend? He work in the cafeteria? He a custodian? Work in the English department? Maybe a guidance counselor? Principal? Oh, no. He's in the 6th grade. What? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You teach 5th grade. You got a 6th grade student as your boyfriend. What? So, you know I teach the 5th grade. He's not my student. He is a student and a child, you lying wench, child rapist. She said, oh, and then she deviated. She said, and if you want to really get into the weeds about all this here thing, see, I didn't even have the credentials needed. I was about to run out of time even to be an official teacher, if you will. I had to go back that summer to get my certification. Now, that's the sort of thing to me should stand out. Wait a minute, you say that you're such a great teacher. Why don't you have all this stuff taken care of? Why are you procrastinating, waiting until the last minute where if something happens, you have an emergency, anything like that, get sideswiped, God forbid, and something happens, and then you don't get your credentials, and then you can't, like, what? Nah, come on, Mary Kay. She says, he asked her, Mary Kay said, how was it, when he says, Mary Kay, I love you? She said, oh my Lord, I told him, and he's talking about something sexual. I said, put that away. What? She said, I meant that idea. I didn't mean his actual penis. I mean, just put that idea that you love me and have some sort of sexual, physical attraction. Just put that. Like, what? What are you? Master deceivers. And once again, you have Vili, him saying, I don't want to talk about this. This feels uncomfortable. I think some of the folks last week who mentioned this interview said, man, to me it seems Vili is starting to figure it out. Like, I am a victim. This is incorrect. I would not want no 30-year-old teacher messing around with my young teenage daughters. Like, this is so like he's, trying to figure out. She's still manipulating. Oh, we got to talk about it, Vili. We're going to do the interview now. Come on now. See, all that narcissism. She likes all that attention, and all the boys thought I was so cute and looking up my dress. And he just wanted me. He was so attracted to me. And, what does it mean to be white? We will get to it. Gregg Olsen, if loving you is wrong. The Pied Piper of Puget Sound. Mary Kay Letourneau, audio segment 1.
Chapter 27. And as the days went on during the summer of 1996, Mary Kay Letourneau and her now 13-year-old protege, Vili Fualaau, seemed inseparable. Vili's brother filled in as a babysitter when teacher and student took art classes, went to art supply stores, and visited galleries in Seattle. As a mother, Mary Kay had never been the type to hang out around the house and vacuum. She was always coordinating some activity. But that summer, those activities always involved Vili. When Mary Claire was invited to a slumber party with assorted cousins at Grandmother Nadine's in Puyallup, Mary Kay said she was so swamped she wasn't certain she would have time to get her there. She was running here and there, one appointment after the next, classes to attend, shopping to take care of. To make matters even more difficult, the day Nadine wanted Mary Claire down in Puyallup was the same day mother and daughter were planning on heading up to Anchorage to join the rest of her children and her husband, who were already up there visiting. Mary Kay altered her plans and made arrangements to go as far as Auburn to meet one of Steve's aunts in a kind of relay race. The aunt agreed to take the little girl down to Nadine's for the slumber party. When she arrived in Auburn, she not only had Mary Claire with her, but she also had Vili Fualaau along for the ride. She said she was going to fly up to Anchorage that afternoon on a 4 p.m. flight. The women picking up Mary Claire thought it was strange that Mary Kay had the Samoan boy with her, and mentioned it to Nadine. Why did she have that boy with her? Nadine wondered. Sharon Hume called her mother the next day. Mary Kay hadn't made the 4 p.m. flight after all. She arrived 5 hours later than planned, but there was more. She was troubled by something else. Mother, she brought this kid, Vili, with her. This kid that she's supposedly teaching art and everything to. What? Nadine asked. She had him with her when she dropped off Mary Claire, but she didn't say anything about bringing him to Alaska. Sharon, who was audibly upset, told her mother that something else was curious. When they arrived at the Letourneaus' Anchorage restaurant, Mary Kay asked Dick Letourneau for the keys to his new truck. She said she wanted to show Vili the stars. They were gone for hours. What was going on? Mary Kay had left her kids, tired and cranky, at the restaurant for hours? What was she thinking? What was she doing? And all the while, when they were in Alaska, Mary kept singing Vili's praises to Steve's family. Nadine later recalled how her daughter Sharon felt about the 13-year-old. They didn't like Vili. They thought he was illiterate. Also, Mary, kept saying, Isn't he wonderful? Isn't he something else? Sharon thought, what is there about this kid that I'm supposed to think is so wonderful? Later, Nadine couldn't shake off the idea that so much had been going on right under Steve's nose, right under everyone's noses, in Normandy Park and in Alaska, too. She sat up till 4 a.m. holding his hand on the davenport downstairs. Stephen was in the bedroom. It blows your mind. It was like Stephen was hypnotized, she said. Other incidents raised an eyebrow or two among Steve's family. One family member was puzzled by Mary Kay's behavior at the last family gathering she attended. It was a wedding reception. She never once spoke to any adults. She was always hovering around the kids' table, conversing and playing with them as though they were her peer group. It was very peculiar and not like Mary Kay at all. Sure, she was attentive to her children, but she liked to be noticed and praised for her lovely outfits by the adults, too. That night she was a child, too. When Mary Kay and Vili returned to Seattle, they brought with them some art photographs of a pair of puffins nuzzling each other. They mate for life, you know, Mary Kay told a friend. If Mary Kay Letourneau lived for the telephone and its link to the world outside her Normandy Park home, one of her favorite people to converse with was Michelle Jarvis. That had been true when they were teenagers and had continued into adulthood. A 4-hour marathon was nothing out of the ordinary, and both women had phone bills to prove it. One particular phone call in late September 1996, however, had been on Michelle's dime. The childhood friend and mother of 3 hadn't heard from Mary Kay for a while, and assumed that her long-distance service had been discontinued for lack of payment, a common occurrence. They got on the phone at 10 and didn't hang up until after 2 a.m., on a day both had to work. Mary never needed as much sleep, but Michelle could always feel the residual drag the next day after an all-nighter with Mary Kay. Much of their conversation that night centered around Vili Fualaau, whom Mary Kay considered a particularly gifted student. She said she had realized his potential when she taught him in 2nd grade, and the ensuing years only verified his artistic ability. Mary Kay said she wanted to help develop his talent. They discussed everything from showing the boy's artwork in a gallery exhibition for students to finding a mentor among the local artists who lived in the area. This is great, Michelle thought at the time. She's got this child that she recognizes this incredible talent in. What an awesome person she is for caring so much. Mary Kay had always been interested in her students, but Michelle had never heard such extreme concern for and awareness of a particular individual. From what she gathered, Vili Fualaau seemed deserving of the interest. Mary Kay described him as a boy from a troubled home, being raised by a single mother in poverty with a father in prison. His prospects were bleak, and she saw his future in his art. Her help could be his ticket out of poverty, she said. It is ironic, Michael Jarvis, Michelle's husband, said later. It was his ticket out of poverty. Not how she planned it, not what she had in mind. In October, Mary Kay called Michelle, now living in Costa Mesa, to tell her that she had fallen in love. In fact, she was in love like she had never been in love before. She practically gushed into the phone, spewing out adjectives and descriptions of the most wonderful person in the world. He was the person that she had been searching for her entire life. She was not going to settle for a life without love anymore. She'd found the perfect love. There hadn't been any sex, but they were considering it. He's so wonderful. We talk about everything. He's my soulmate. Oddly, for a woman who showed no compunction about sharing intimate aspects of her love life when she and Michelle were teenagers, Mary Kay didn't provide many concrete details about the wonderful new guy in her life. She offered nothing about his job or his social status. Not even the subject of his ever-important appearance was broached. Nothing much beyond the fact that he was wonderful and she was in love. She told me he was a student and she had a class with him over the summer, Michelle recalled. I was thinking he was a student in college that she had met through taking this class. So without coming right out and saying who he was, she led me to believe that he was a college student. In my mind, I was thinking he was about 20 or so, she said later. But she never really said an age. But she was so happy that Michelle didn't pry. I wonder what took her so long to find someone to love, she thought. A few weeks later, more news came in another phone call from Mary Kay. "I'm pregnant," she said, "and it's not Steve's." Michelle didn't condemn. She was happy about it. Mary Kay seemed overjoyed, and after all the years with Steve, she certainly was entitled to some shred of joy. Mary Kay said that the father was the same person, the student she had fallen in love with over the summer. Of course there would be no abortion. She was going to divorce Steve and have the baby. Does Steve know? Michelle wondered. No, she said, adding that she had recently slept with Steve to buy some time while she figured out what she was going to do. There was no love lost between them, and getting him into bed hadn't been easy, but the mission was accomplished. Intercourse had allowed the possibility that the baby was her husband's. Michelle didn't fault her childhood friend for the deception. "Will Steve believe that it's his baby?" she asked. Mary Kay doubted it. "The baby will have black hair," she said. At that point, Mary Kay said she was biding her time. Things were tense enough, and adding a baby from her affair to the mix would be trouble. Steve was agitated and suspicious enough. "Mary Kay, I'm very afraid for you," Michelle said. "I'm afraid of how he will react to this." Her friend told her not to worry. Cake was sure she could handle it. Whatever was going on at the Letourneaus' house had to be pretty bad. Scott Douglas came home very upset one afternoon and told his mother that Stephen's parents were not going to have a party for his 12th birthday. Ellen Douglas wasted no time in telling her son that they'd celebrate his friend's birthday by inviting Stephen over for pizza and videos. The words ran through her mind. Just because your family is falling apart doesn't mean your friends don't love you. Later, Steve Letourneau talked with Ellen, and the subject of the stress in his family came up. Steve said that big trouble had, in fact, been in the offing for a while. He refused to elaborate. "I can't tell you now, but you're not going to believe it." Ellen didn't push, though the grade school teacher was certainly intrigued. "Don't give me a little bit of the story. It's like licking the spoon without eating the cookie," she thought later. Chapter 28. Grandma Nadine knew that something was up with her grandson and his wife, but she had no idea how bad it would get. No marriage was perfect, and the rumblings she'd heard about Steve and Mary Kay seemed like more of the same. Instead of brooding about something over which she had no control, she looked forward to filling her mobile home with children and grandchildren for the holidays. Holidays, she knew, were stressful enough without worrying about someone else's marriage. But all of that was put on hold when she answered the phone one evening. It was her daughter Sharon in Alaska. Her voice was ragged and her words constricted. She was upset. Nadine could tell something bad was coming. It was about Mary Kay. "Everything I suspected is true," Sharon said, finally diving into the reason for her call. "She's having an affair with that 13-year-old. Nadine sat down on the sofa up against row after row of family pictures. Steve and Mary Kay and the children, every combination of every member in the family, all of the beautiful blonde-headed kids smiling wide and sweetly. The faces stared down on her as she spoke to her daughter. "And she's pregnant." She could barely believe her ears. "You've got to be kidding me," was all Nadine could come up with. "No. Stephen has all the proof in the world." Nadine's blood boiled. "I'm glad for that," the older woman said, surprised at her daughter's disclosure, but not shocked. It was a strange feeling. Although the words were outrageous, she believed Mary Kay was capable of such an act. "Those poor kids," she added. Sharon swore her mother to secrecy, as Stephen had requested. He was going to handle it his own way. Sharon said that Steve didn't want to make it public until he had all of the evidence. And though Sharon had known about it for a while, she needed to talk to somebody about it. She could no longer hold it inside, so she called her mother. Whether they kept their mouths shut or not, there was going to be no hiding it. The boy was a Samoan, and the baby would look like him, too. "This will come out," Nadine said. "It will, Mother," she said, adding that she wasn't going to the authorities, at least not without Stephen saying so. They had to think about the 4 children and what was best for them. Sharon had known shortly after Mary Kay's visit with Vili that summer. Stephen had told her. She also told her mother that Dick Letourneau and his wife, Phyllis, knew. Nadine didn't breathe a word of it to anyone. She watched and waited, and she wondered. Why was Stephen staying with his wife? Why didn't he take the kids from her and dump her? Then the answer came to her. Despite it all, she knew that Steve still loved Mary Kay. Maybe the whole thing would blow over. "I think Stephen hoped she'd lose the baby," Nadine said later. The Letourneau clan didn't keep their vow of silence among themselves. Whenever Nadine and her daughters got together, the subject was the first order of business. They felt so sorry for Steve. Outside of his 4 children, they saw Steve as the true victim in the whole thing. They felt he had been manipulated and brainwashed by his wife and the forces working with her. Nadine thought the priest was supporting Mary Kay. She went to the priest even and talked about it and took Steve. Tried to get the priest to talk Steve out of dissolving the marriage and just accepting the baby and going on. Nadine saw the meetings with the priest at St. Philomena as an attempt to buy time. She couldn't believe that Steve was so naive as to think that she'd really stay with him and raise the schoolboy's baby as their own. Kind of hard to do if the baby has coal-black hair and dark skin, she thought. She viewed it as more of Mary Kay's manipulation of Steve, whom she was sure was shell-shocked by the disclosure. She was trying to cover her own tracks, that's all she was doing, she said. Trying to make himself believe that he could raise the boy's baby. How evil she was. Nadine never believed the pregnancy was anything but intentional, and she told family members just what she thought. They planned it. She planned it, same as she planned the pregnancy with Steve. Sometimes stories would filter from Steve to Sharon to Nadine, an information line that went from Washington to Alaska and back to Washington and pulsed with regularity. Some stories brought outrage. She left Mary Claire one night all by herself, a 9-year-old girl, and took the rest of the children, probably Vili too, to a movie because she was mad at Mary Claire. That was punishment. Stephen came home at 11 at night, nobody around. Heard this little girl sobbing and went into the living room, curled up on the sofa, sobbing her little heart out. "Mary Claire, where is Mom? Where is everybody?" You call that a loving mom? Chapter 29. In the fall of 1996, Danelle Johnson sat at her kitchen table, sucked hard on a cigarette as she tried to figure out what was going on with her 13-year-old twins, Drew and Molly. The turn of events was almost beyond belief. The spring before, her youngest two couldn't wait to get out of Shorewood Elementary and into the halls of Cascade Middle School. Couldn't wait to leave grade school behind. The mother of 2 children who never excelled at school had very mixed feelings. She didn't know what to make of what was going on. Should she be happy or angry? Without provocation, the children were going to Shorewood nearly every day after class, and staying until curfew time in the evening to help Mary Letourneau. It was so peculiar. The first time it happened, Danelle asked Drew what was going on at the school. The boy said a bunch of former students were helping their former teacher with class projects, paper grading, bulletin boards. Among the group were Vili and a cousin. I thought it was strange, weird, but how nice. I'm thinking they're safe, going down there after school, helping a teacher and getting involved and interested in education. So Mary Kay's a cool teacher. What harm could the little thing do? Could be nothing but good for them, she said later. Not long after Drew started hanging out in room 39, his twin sister Molly and her friend Nicole joined in. It was only when the girls started coming home late, saying they had stopped off at McDonald's on Ambaum Boulevard, that Danelle's blood began to churn. "But we're helping Miss Letourneau," Molly said. Danelle shook her head. "I don't care what you're doing down there with her. If she's not giving you a ride home, then you're not going down there to help her." And as teenagers do when they can, they ignored their mother and continued to go to Shorewood, but they made it a point to get home on time, or at least closer to the 8:30 p.m. curfew. Later, Mrs. Johnson remembered how it was that she allowed her children to hang out at the school so late in the evening. She felt as though her kids were safe, with their former teacher's unorthodox after-hours help sessions. I thought it was good for them. I was worried about their schoolwork, worried about them going from 6th grade to the 7th. They were getting interested in school. I swear to God, I thought it was a help. I couldn't imagine that anything she could do would be wrong. It was sometime after 10 p.m. on a school night in October 1996 when Danelle Johnson began to wonder what was really going on at the school. Her son and daughter were in bed, and the mother of 6 was watching television when she heard a knock on the door. It was Mary Kay Letourneau standing on the front step, looking agitated and flustered. Behind her was a young boy whom Danelle recognized, a friend of her son's. The teacher apologized for the intrusion at the late hour, but she had no choice. Her words were rapid fire and aimed right at Mrs. Johnson. "He was helping at the school. He got locked out of his house. His dad's not home. I can't wait around for him to come home. Is it okay if he stays here with you?" Danelle Johnson was flabbergasted. "What the hell is he doing down there this late at night anyway? My kids are in bed already. They went to bed at 9. I don't understand. Why would you want these kids down there that late at night?" "Well, he was helping me with the bulletin board, and then he just got locked out. I've got to get home. I don't know what to do," she said. "Yeah, he can stay here," Danelle finally said, as she led the boy inside and shut the door as the teacher quickly turned and walked back to her van. A few minutes later, the impromptu care provider had the kid's father on the phone. "Are you sure he's there?" the man asked, as if he'd been that route before and wasn't exactly sure that the call was legitimate. Why would I make that up? Danelle wondered. "Yeah, I'm sure," she said. "And he's scared to death that he's going to get in trouble from you. But I don't think it was his fault." The father agreed that it would be all right for his boy to spend the night, as long as Danelle made sure he'd get to school the next day. Years later, Danelle tried to put 2 and 2 together. "Now that I think about it," she said later, "I'll bet she had Vili out in the van also. She was trying to get rid of the boy so she could be alone with him." It was Mary Kay Letourneau's sweet and young-sounding voice on the line. It was mid-December, 1996. It was a call out of the blue. Not for Christmas greetings or school fundraising or anything that anyone might come up with to characterize a call just before the holidays. "I'm concerned about Molly," the teacher said. Danelle Johnson repeated the statement as a question. "Why are you concerned about Molly?" "Molly comes down to the school all the time. I know that. Her and Nicole, Vili, Drew, all those guys come down. What's the problem?" "Well, Molly seems to think that I'm her best friend, that I'm the only friend she has. She tells me all kinds of things and stories about school and life up at the junior high, and I don't think she should be hanging around here so much. I don't even know her." "She was in your class, and those guys have been helping you for 3 or 4 months. What do you mean you don't know her?" Mary Letourneau sputtered to a finish. "Well, I don't know her. We're not best friends. I'm kind of worried about her. She should have friends her own age." Danelle Johnson was furious, and she was hurt for her daughter, who had a mixed-up relationship with an older woman. It was a friendship about which Molly spoke often. It was Mrs. Letourneau this, Mrs. Letourneau that, all day, every day. "All right," she said softly. "I'll tell her to quit coming down there and bothering you, or whatever she's doing to you. Seems to me like you've encouraged these kids to come around there and help you. I don't want to hurt her feelings. I don't want to hurt her either. I'm just worried about her. She shouldn't think she's my best friend." "She has a friend her own age," Danelle said. "Her friend comes down there with her to help you. They think they're doing something great there. I'm just real worried about her," Mary repeated. Danelle Johnson thanked the teacher for her concern and hung up. She was very troubled. There's something wrong. Why would the kids think they should be going down there and helping her? And why would she call me to tell me she didn't even know Molly? Later that day, Danelle found a moment to talk to her daughter about the call. "Mrs. Letourneau doesn't want you to come around anymore," she said. The girl asked her mother for an explanation. "She says you act like you're her best friend, and she thinks you should have best friends your own age. She thinks you're getting way too involved. She asked you to stop." "Yeah, whatever, Mom." Danelle mulled it over that night and in the days and weeks after. She rationalized it. She worried about it. She figured the kids had become too rowdy and Mary Letourneau couldn't have them around as much. Maybe another teacher complained. Teeny boppers aren't a lot of fun 24 hours a day. Maybe they got on her nerves. Drew and Vili continued to go to Shorewood, while, for the most part, Molly stayed away. Not long after the phone call from the 6th-grade teacher, Danelle spoke to her new husband about it. It disturbed her that her kids were spending so much time with their former teacher. "There's something weird going on," she said. "Why is this woman hanging around with these kids from junior high school?" Her husband didn't have an answer. No one did. That Steve Letourneau had become violent and abusive toward Mary Kay to the point of hitting, kicking, and pushing her to the ground had been a shock to Michelle Jarvis. In all the years Michelle had known Mary Kay, she had never once heard of any abuse. Sure, Steve could be a jerk and punch some holes in the wall, but he didn't knock his wife around. But as Michelle learned, a few weeks after Steve found out that Mary Kay had become pregnant in the fall of 1996, things worsened in Normandy Park. Mary Kay would reiterate some of the things that Steve had been saying and doing, and as the weeks went by, the information she shared with Michelle began to scare her. She not only worried for her friend, but she worried about the 4 Letourneau kids. In his embarrassment, hurt, rage, whatever, Steve never lost an opportunity to remind them what their mother had done. I know it for a fact because I heard him when she was on the phone with me. She would write down all of the things he said to her, and he said things in front of the children. He would talk about where she had sexual relations with Vili to the children. And always, Michelle Jarvis, more than anyone, would focus on the Letourneau children and how their parents had handled a terrible situation. It seemed that Mary Kay thought only of Vili, and Steve was fixated on making Mary Kay pay for what she had done. The kids were an afterthought when she did what she did, and they were an afterthought for him in that all he focused on was his own rage and his own need to get even or get back at her, Michelle said later. Michelle wrestled with the idea that maybe she could take in the children, and she discussed it with her husband. It was more thinking out loud than much else. How could it be otherwise? She had no claim to the kids. They were Mary Kay's and Steve's. She told Mary Kay that once the verbal and physical abuse started, she should take the children and leave. She should call the police and have Steve arrested. But Mary Kay kept insisting that Steve would come around and things would get better. They didn't. As the name-calling worsened, the children were left to absorb it all. Michelle worried that long-term damage had been done. The things Steve said about their mother, these kids are going to be in therapy forever. I doubt very much they are going to fully recover. They've been messed up for life. Damage control could have been had. The kids were oddly casual about the subject matter, and it bothered Donnell Johnson when they told her that Mary Letourneau had been beaten by her husband Steve. At least, that's what she told Drew and Vili during one of the late-night bulletin board sessions at Shorewood Elementary. The kids related how Mary had told them Steve had hit her and was mean to her and all of that. Donnell wondered about it later. Why in the hell would a grown woman be telling this 12-year-old kid about her family life, about her husband beating her and things like that? Where would that come from? And, she wondered, where would it lead? Chapter 30. One afternoon, a Shorewood teacher looked out of her window and saw Vili Fualaau driving Mary Letourneau's van in the courtyard. It was worth a double take. It was so outrageous and potentially disastrous. The van moved slowly toward the window, and the teacher worried that the boy was going to drive it right through the glass. He wasn't even a teenager as far as she knew. He was a child. Just as she bolted from the window to avoid a disaster, Mary came running out of the annex to save the day. The teacher was relieved. Why had Mary given a kid her keys? Why hadn't she supervised him, though it was possible Vili had taken the keys without permission? The teacher couldn't help but notice the expression on the boy's face. You could see this big smile on his face. I'm this evil little person doing something. Later, when she thought about it, the teacher dismissed it as just weird interaction stuff between Mary and Vili. It was not anything unusual for Mary Letourneau. Mary was always weird. She did strange stuff. Years later, a teacher who worked for many years at Shorewood shook her head at the memory of an encounter she had with a student in the hallway near the school library. A girl came up to her and asked her if she knew where Mary was. The teacher thought the girl was looking for a student. Mary who? She asked. Well, you know, Mary. No, I'm afraid I don't. Whose class is she in? The girl got snotty. Mary Letourneau, she said. The teacher was miffed by the attitude and reminded the student that at Shorewood teachers were addressed by their last name. If you're looking for Mrs. Letourneau, I'm sorry, she said, but I haven't seen her. Whatever, the girl said before stomping off in a huff. The teacher held that little scene in her mind as a perfect example of the boundaries that Mary seemed to ignore. She allowed the kids to call her by her first name. She gave them her phone number, address, call anytime, she said later. When she told another Shorewood teacher about it, she too thought it was inappropriate and dangerous. Fostering that kind of closeness wasn't right in a professional setting. It could only invite trouble. I don't give out my name and address unless it's an absolute emergency. Parents can send a note to school. Leave me a message at the office, the other teacher said. For some, the noise coming from room 39 was more than they could take. It seemed that no matter what time of day, Mary Letourneau's classes seemed to buzz with a boisterous energy that sometimes seemed to border on pandemonium. Friends seemed to understand that was just the way Mary did things, but newer teachers who didn't have an emotional investment in a relationship with the woman, found they could tolerate it less. Mary had a comfort level that was probably different than some people, but when Mary wanted to have their attention, she had their attention, said a veteran teacher and friend. So if she allowed kids to behave in a way that was comfortable for her, but uncomfortable for other people, that was her style of teaching. But she also had very good control when she needed it or wanted it. One newer teacher who occupied the classroom next to Mary Kay's bit her tongue until she could no longer take the invasion of noise coming through the walls. Sometimes I couldn't hear myself think, she said later. After much exasperation and soul-searching, the woman finally went over to tell Mary that the noise level was disturbing her students. She had tried to choose words that would not offend, because she didn't want to cause problems or make Mary feel bad. Nevertheless, Mary was offended. The next day she made sure to come over and tell me that we were being too noisy, the teacher remembered. Chapter 31. No one could figure out her waning sense of style. Mary Kay Letourneau always prided herself on her appearance, always had. Her hair and makeup had been a priority since those agonizing hours Michelle Jarvis had had to endure in Mary Kay's bedroom back in Corona del Mar. But as the school year went on, people noticed that the woman who shopped at Nordstrom with a maxed-out credit card wasn't dressing that way anymore. Instead of a classic pleated wool skirt and blouse, Mary wore tennis shoes and layers of T-shirts, sometimes as many as 3 or 4 at once. She also wore tights, and sometimes 2 skirts at the same time. Parents noticed, too. She never wore anything that fit her, a mother recalled. Yet she was so beautiful, it was strange. When the kids asked her about her layering, Mary shyly explained that her choice in attire was the result of a comment. "One of my friends said I was bony," she said. She wore the layers to cover up what most considered was a beautiful figure, yet somehow Mary had got it in her head that she was grotesquely thin, a 90s Twiggy. No one thought she had an eating disorder. In fact, most marveled at her ability to eat whatever she wanted without gaining an ounce. Even so, it was apparent to many that Mary Letourneau was obsessed about her weight, or lack of it. But there were other options. A number of students at Shorewood favored baggy clothes, the rapper or gangster style. Some wondered if Mary Letourneau was making a fashion statement when she wore clothes that hung on her like a sheet on a drying line. But something else was going on, too. One time she came to class without her usual layers. Instead, Mary wore a woman's long-sleeved cotton T-shirt and a wool skirt. Without mentioning names, she later told a friend what happened. "Somebody was obviously scanning me, giving me the eye, looking at me at places where I wouldn't want anyone to look. He said, 'Hey, now I can see it all.' I went out to my car and put on another shirt. It upset me. I think when I talked to him later, I even used the word harass when I said I felt uncomfortable with what he was saying and where he was looking." Students tried to encourage her whenever possible. One time, when bolstered by her 6th graders, Mary wore a green dress that was stylish, and the Round Table kids told her how terrific she looked. Mary accepted the compliment and wore the dress several more times. She never looked better that entire year. Though none of them knew it then, the next time they would see that green dress was when their teacher appeared on TV, on her way to court. Though Mary Letourneau had never seemed particularly happy in her marriage with Steve, things worsened during 1994 to 1996 at Shorewood Elementary. She told a teacher friend that she had married Steve Letourneau only because she became pregnant. Her Catholic-to-the-hilt mother had put her foot down. There was no way she was not going to marry Steve. Mary told the other teacher that she had loved another man and had been engaged to be married, but she had been jilted. Steve Letourneau had been a rebound relationship. It surprised the Shorewood colleague when she learned that Mary was pregnant with her 5th baby. She knew from previous conversations that Mary hadn't slept with her husband for months, and, equally puzzling, Mary hadn't been the one to tell her that she was pregnant. She learned it from someone else. "Whose baby is it?" the teacher asked, knowing immediately that her question was odd, but it just came out. She had assumed that Steve was not the father. She didn't know who, though. Mary thought about it for a second and answered. "Actually, it's my baby," she said. She went on to say that she knew her body and could gauge her ovulation with complete precision. It didn't answer the question, but it did confuse the friend. Was she saying that she was pregnant by Steve after all? Or had she found someone else and decided to have a baby? Later, when Mary showed her the silvery films of an ultrasound examination, the friend asked if Steve had been accompanying her to the obstetrician's office. "No," she said firmly. "This is my baby." Money was always a big worry for Mary Letourneau, and most at Shorewood knew it. Of course, with teachers' salaries being what they were, a husband who threw baggage for a living, and 4 kids with another on the way, money would be an issue for just about anyone. Mary never had any money of her own, and it bothered her. Her paycheck was used to pay the mortgage on the Normandy Park house. Steve had insisted. "Steve had control of the money," said a teacher who knew Mary well. "Her check went to the house payment because that was the house she wanted." Though she said she never wanted the van in the first place, Mary was glad for it, because it afforded her an opportunity to do some secret stockpiling. During the 1996-97 school year, the pregnant 6th-grade teacher told a colleague that she had begun to squirrel away extra cash. She had secret places in the van to hide it, the teacher said later. She wanted to have some money herself. The disclosure wasn't that peculiar. The teacher knew that Mary and Steve were having serious marital troubles. Mary freely talked about those problems. But when a teacher tried to talk to Mary about her own finances or any other subject from her life, she doubted Mary was paying much attention. "It never seemed she was much interested in what I had to say back. I could be telling her something, but I knew her mind was going somewhere else." Chapter 32. Mary Kay Letourneau was elated by the pregnancy. She reveled in it. She told her 6th-grade class that she was going to have her 5th baby before she told any of her colleagues at Shorewood. She told them she was due in May, just before the end of the school year. The baby was so wanted, and the teacher beamed whenever she brought up the subject. One afternoon, 7th-graders Vili Fualaau and Katie Hogden met with their former 6th-grade teacher in the classroom when she brought out the sonogram images from among her drifting sheaves of papers and school bric-a-brac. Mary traced the lines of the image, pointing out the baby's head and arms. Katie had never seen her teacher so joyous. She was glowing with happiness, she said later. But so was Vili Fualaau. Vili was just so happy, too, that she was going to have a baby that it was kind of awkward, Katie recalled sometime later, when many of her memories had been tarnished by the story that had taken over the lives of her 2 friends. "I knew them so well," she said, "but I didn't pay attention to the most obvious thing. I missed the big thing. It didn't occur to me then that Vili had anything to do with it." Judy Hogden had a different reaction when she first heard about the impending birth. She thought it was peculiar that Mary Kay had turned up pregnant in the first place. She knew from comments Katie had made that Mary and Steve Letourneau were struggling through a rough patch in their marriage. "I guess it worked this time," she said when she talked to her daughter about Mary's pregnancy. "Stranger things had happened." Later, when it was hinted that Mary's husband was not the baby's father, Judy couldn't make sense of the man sticking around in the same house in Normandy Park. "If he knows that's not his child, then why would he stay with her?" she asked. Nobody in the neighborhood knew what it was, but it was clear that something was going on with the Letourneaus. Some saw changes in the children, particularly Stephen and Mary Claire. Stephen Letourneau ditched G.I. Joe action figures for an attitude and the grungy, baggy look of a gangbanger. The change seemed sudden to Ellen Douglas. Stephen even adopted the shuffle walk and the dull, apathetic gaze of a kid who didn't care or who thought the world owed him something. Ellen talked about it with her schoolteacher husband, Daniel. We'd look at him and we'd look at Scott and say, wow, he's really growing up, but not in a real positive way. Yet Ellen noticed how once he came over to play with her son, Scott, he'd abandon the tough, cool thug demeanor and be a little boy once more, playing with Legos and running around the house. After a while it dawned on Ellen that the boy's affect had been a complete pretense. Maybe something was wrong at home. Ellen and her husband couldn't figure it out. All they could come up with was that the kids were not happy-go-lucky anymore, and they didn't know why. It made us sad, she said later. Something was going on in their childhood. Life was not real happy at home. But what was it? What on earth is going on here? The Shorewood elementary teacher stared at the driver of Mary Letourneau's Voyager. It wasn't Steve Letourneau behind the wheel as the vehicle, still adorned with the Alaska plates, pulled up the service driveway. It was the end of January 1997. The teacher recognized the driver as Vili's brother, a boy who, as far as she knew, wasn't old enough for a driver's license. What the? She thought. He's underage. She watched for a few minutes until Mary Kay came bounding out of the building and jumped into the passenger side. She had obviously given the boy her keys to move the van from God knows where to pick her up. The flabbergasted woman followed them as they drove from school. She stayed back a bit, not really knowing why, but only that she was so shocked at the idea of a kid driving a teacher's car. She followed the blue van to a house off 21st, and the boy got out, and Mary Kay slid behind the wheel and drove off. The teacher who tailed Mary Kay Letourneau was ready to tell Principal Ann Johnson what she had seen, but she stopped herself. Just like she stopped herself when she nearly hit Jacqueline Letourneau when the little one darted out in front of her in the parking lot one day. Just as she stopped herself the times when the frazzled teacher was late for school, nearly every day, arriving at 9:15 or 9:20. For years it was, oh, that's just Mary. Mary can do this. Mary can do that. I just thought that's okay, she said later. Reporting Mary in the past for anything seldom brought results, not even a reprimand that the teacher could remember. For whatever reason, the principal did not act, so why should she bother? One night around 7 p.m., when the linoleum hallway of the Shorewood Annex was quiet, the Shorewood custodian came across Mary Letourneau coming out of the girls' bathroom just to the west of her classroom. The man was on his way in to clean the toilets. The lights were off. Mary Kay seemed a little nervous and quickly indicated that her former student, Vili Fualaau, was upset about something and had sequestered himself in a stall. Mary said she tried to calm him down. He's having one of his attitudes, you know, teenagers, she said, offering a smile and a shrug. The janitor had teenagers of his own and said he understood. He liked Mary Letourneau and knew that the boy in the bathroom was a regular visitor to room 39. He was a good kid. He didn't think much of the encounter and didn't report it. Neither did he report the time he saw Vili driving his teacher's van in the school parking lot. Chapter 33. It was no surprise that Steve and Mary Kay Letourneau were late. They had never made it on time for anything. Steve's cousin Kyle Gardner and his wife Linda not only expected perpetual tardiness, but often placed a bet with each other about how late they'd show up. An hour? 2? The smart money was always a little later than that. Linda bet for money. Her husband bet for sexual favors. Linda usually won. But in January 1997, Steve and Mary Kay didn't show up at all to an engagement party at the Tacoma Country Club for one of Steve's cousins. Chronically late was one thing. Not appearing at a family function was very peculiar. Kyle Gardner's mother and Steve's father, Dick Letourneau, were siblings, and their respective sons were practically raised together until Dick and Sharon moved to Anchorage. Standing in the buffet line, Linda asked another Letourneau cousin where Steve and Mary Kay were. The young woman looked at her with a serious but puzzled look. "Don't you know?" the cousin asked. As Linda indicated she didn't know anything, An aunt nudged the cousin, her daughter, out of the way and abruptly ended the conversation. Linda stood there with her plate, wondering what was going on. Something's funny here for her to be whisked away like that. Linda Gardner was a fireplug of a woman. She was outspoken in a family where it seemed they preferred agreement or compliance. Linda was not a troublemaker, but a woman who knew that by age 32 she was old enough to speak her mind. She and her husband, Kyle, were raising a son and a daughter, and they were doing it on their own, without family handouts. Linda was planning a dream house that she was going to build herself. If she broke a nail, who in the hell cared? She was also a lover of information gathering and digging deep into a subject to bring out what no one had known before. This was not to say she was nosy or pushy, though some family members might have thought so. When Linda ferreted out the truth behind a family relationship, Kyle nicknamed his wife Secret Squirrel, after the crime-fighting rodent cartoon show of their childhood. It was the encounter at the buffet line at the engagement party that put her into Secret Squirrel overdrive. Everyone had been so quiet about Steve and Mary Kay. No one would say a word, though one did let slip that the two were having marital problems. That was news to Linda. "I thought they were the perfect little Catholic family," she said later. Of course, Linda had no idea what was really going on. She had no idea what was going on with Mary Kay, and she never would have guessed it in a million years. And she certainly didn't know that Steve was already involved with another woman, a beautiful Alaska Airlines flight attendant from Newport Beach named Kelly Whalen. The two had purportedly met in Mexico when Steve took a little holiday to get away from his troubles. Chapter 34. It ate at Secret Squirrel like splashed acid. Linda Gardner couldn't stand the secrecy and the silence surrounding Steve and Mary Kay's faltering marriage. What was the frickin' deal? No one even mentioned them anymore. It was like they had taken a swan dive off the face of the earth. The Gardners had sent their daughter on a trip to visit grandparents in Arizona for midwinter break. The couple decided to stop by the new house of another of Kyle's cousins near SeaTac Airport before the plane bringing their daughter rolled down the tarmac. By then, Kyle seemed just as interested in the silence as his wife had been. When the new homeowners were showing them around their yard, Kyle asked about it. "What's going on with Steve and Mary Kay? Everyone is so quiet." Before the cousin or his wife could answer, Linda spoke up. "Well, I know something's wrong. I know it's Mary Kay. I think she's having an affair, and it's not with a man. Either she's a lesbian or something worse." The cousin's wife's mouth went agape. "You guys really don't know, do you?" she said. "No," Linda said, "we don't know. What?" The cousin answered for his wife, saying that they couldn't tell. "I have sworn that I won't tell anybody what I know," he said. Secret Squirrel's mind raced as it went into high gear. "Oh, my God, she's a lesbian," she thought. On their way home, they drove past the house in Normandy Park just to see. Linda slumped in the passenger seat, as if being detected would matter, or as if she were on some kind of a spy mission. She had never been to the house before, and after what she had heard, she thought the place looked like a dump, not the showplace Mary Kay had let others believe. She saw Stephen walking down the street, but no other sign of the distraught family with the lesbian mother. When they arrived at their home in Bonnie Lake, Linda urged Kyle to phone his mother in Kentucky to find out what was going on. He called from the kitchen, and Linda got on the bedroom extension. Kyle told his mother that they didn't like being in the dark. Everyone in the family knew something was up, everyone but them. "You have to swear that you will not tell anybody or do anything," she said. "You have to swear to me." Linda crossed her fingers. "I swear," she said, echoing Kyle's promise. "Mary Kay was having an affair," Kyle's mother said. "Yeah, she's pregnant." "Oh, really?" That was news to Linda. She hadn't heard a word of any pregnancy. Then Kyle's mother dropped the bomb of all bombs. "It's with a 12-year-old, she said. Linda didn't say a word, but a phrase bounced through her head as though she had been screaming from a mountaintop. "Oh, my God!" It shocked Linda that no one had turned Mary Kay into the police. The mother said the Letourneaus were hoping that the boy, who had been one of Mary Kay's students, would come forward and break the story. Steve's family had kept silent because of the children involved. Once more, Kyle's mother made them promise not to breathe a word. Her attitude was very firm. Do not tell anybody. Do not do anything about it. She didn't say it was right, Linda said later. She didn't say it was wrong. Do keep your mouths shut. Putting together the pieces wasn't easy, not even for Secret Squirrel. Linda Gardner had always considered Mary Kay Letourneau a bit of a phony. At least, she was so overly nice that it seemed that no person could be genuinely that sweet. Linda remembered the last time she saw Mary was at the Western Washington State Fair in Puyallup, south of Seattle. She and her 2 children bumped into Mary and her 4 kids quite by accident. It was mid-September 1996. Since the children were shirt-tail cousins, Linda thought it was nice that all could be together at the same time, even though the meeting was merely accidental. But Mary was in a hurry. She was preoccupied. She didn't seem to want to pal around like she might have done in the past. She was real fast. At that time, she wasn't her bubbly self. She wanted to get away from me pretty fast, Linda said later. Of course, at that time, the Letourneaus' world was beginning to unravel. Mary Kay was pregnant, and no one knew it. That night, Linda Gardner poured herself a big glass of wine and told her husband that they had to confirm his mother's story. What she had said was so unbelievable, so off the wall, and so ugly that Linda didn't think it could really be true. "Are we imagining this?" she asked. It was so disturbing. A 35-year-old teacher having sex with a 6th grader. How dare a teacher we put in the classroom with our children do this? She was also bitter at her husband's family for their conspiracy of deceit. They knew that fall. They knew at Thanksgiving. They knew at Christmas. At the engagement party in January. Kyle's mother came out for the holidays, and she knew, and she didn't tell us a thing. When I look back at this, it angers me. From a parent's point of view, here she was still teaching. She was still in the classroom, she said later. Linda was consumed with worry. She wondered if this boy wasn't the only one. She feared for Mary Kay's 2 sons or others in the classroom. You don't all of a sudden go from being an outstanding teacher and having sex with a 12-year-old boy. You just don't, she told her husband.
Trying to use a teaspoon of logic. Maybe Vili wasn't the only one. Just perhaps, and even, can I pause one more time? This is one of those that I think we hear context of white supremacy have emphasized for years and years and years. No snitching. No snitching. The undisputed, undefeated champions, known universe of no snitching. Racist man, racist woman, racist child. That is white culture, and I mean under all circumstances, no snitching. I think she done raped a child. Zip it. I think she might even get... No snitching. Now see, that right there, I'm very aware. Really, we here at the Katherine Massey Book Club are very aware. White people rape a lot of white children, the Boy Scouts, Jeffrey Epstein, Jerry Sandusky, Penn State. It's a lot of them. It's a lot of them. Anyway, Catholic Church, my goodness. Non-white children getting raped by a white person, and that's one that we're going to pull out our no snitch policy. That is for sure an act of racism all day long. I don't care what, especially, you know, we've been fighting about the brown boy, and I ain't gonna raise no brown boy with black hair and black eyes and brown skin at all, my Lord, and the brown boy and the brown boy. Shh. Nope. Act then. That's deliberate act of racism because you knew immediately. Ooh. And in fact, she's a teacher. That should be immediate and mandatory because just what Linda just said, hey, Vili might not be the only one. She might have raped some white children too, right? No snitching. Any hoodles, we will resume. We're in chapter 34, midpoint. We'll pick back up. Linda, disgusted with all this. No snitching. The number to dial, 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. The email, untiljustice@gmail.com. untiljustice@gmail.com. Let us know if you have thoughts, observations. Again, did you process this event as an act of racism when it happened? Did you hear other black people, parents, grandparents, uncles, school teachers? Did they talk about this as, man, that old blonde racist white woman did all that, picked out that non-white child, did all that practicing racism? Did you all hear people? Did you think of it that way? And I know we have a lot of educators. Do you all remember this crime being discussed? Like, hey, man, don't be no Mary Kay. Keep your paws off the students. We don't need no hugs. Just teach the class. Just teach the class. No, we don't need no love. We're not going into the classroom looking for love. Just keep the class. Keep everything zipped up. Hey, we don't even be looking for other teachers. Because we heard that too. No. Just teach the class, man. See if you can interrupt the school to prison pipeline. See if you can do something about that as opposed to, I'm looking for love. They got some cuties over there in the second grade. Get them ABCs down and come on. Star 61 if you have commentary. Let's see. Folks who dialed in with a hand up again for educate. It would seem right. This is new, right? This is one, if you got teachers, especially if they are, I'm going to say, if you got anybody, if they're in the age of like 20 to 30, they should know about Mary Kay. Like, even if they were born like 2005 or so, that's right after all this happened. They've had all those movies and books and more coming. You've seen or heard Mary Kay. If you're 20 years old or a little bit older, everybody, all the teachers from like the last 20 years or so, it should be at least a good generation. Oh yeah, we had a whole 2 weeks where we talked about Mary Kay. We read Gregg Olsen's book, or read a different one, or we watched Barbara Walters, and talked about all this and what to do and what to say at different ages, because it might be a different conversation if you get a student and he's attracted to you senior in high school, 17, as opposed to Vili at 12. It's a different way to diffuse that. They might have whole conversations about do they do that? Does anybody know? Do you remember, do we have Mary Kay week when you get into the education program, college and such? Make sure we don't have no repeats so this don't happen again. Do they do that, or is that just, Let's see. Folks who dialed in with a hand up. Lauren, retired firefighter, should be with us. We'll nab other hands as I see them.
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Right. Okay. So during the audio segment that you played, it said when she began her secret affair with her 12-year-old student. I don't think that's the best way to say it's accurate. Maybe when she started raping a 12-year-old child. Also, I thought it was pretty interesting that the interviewer, he asked Vili, he said, do you have any memory of those years? And Vili, he didn't really seem to remember it. He said he remembered just random stuff. And I think that's interesting. And it shows just how young he was, because he didn't really remember a lot of things the way Mary Kay did. And when she brought up that he was in the closet with other little boys, and she said that Vili told her that when she would walk by, they would try to look up her skirt. I think you commented on this, but she sounded so pleased with herself. Like, she seemed really happy that children would be trying to look up her skirt. And that just seems sick, inappropriate, to say the least. And the way the interviewer was posing the questions, the way he was using language, because he asked Vili what first attracted you to Mary, but then when he poses the question to Mary Kay Letourneau, he said, when did you first realize you had feelings for a student? He didn't say, when did you first, realize that you were attracted to a child? And really, if she had sex with him when he was 12, it stands to reason that she had some sort of sexual attraction when he was even younger than that. And also, he said, when did you first realize you had feelings for a student? And her answer, her response, she said, he wasn't my student. And that's just not true. Vili was her student. And also, she talked a lot, but she didn't answer the question. And the way she talked about, she said, we were in the same college. And I think that's the way she talked to Michelle on the phone when Michelle got the idea that she was engaging in sexual activity with a college-age person. And then she changed it on the interview. But I think she said it that way because that's the way she talked about Vili to other people. But after she said we were in the same college, she changed it. And she said, well, we took a class at the same college. And I just... later, in that interview, she said, he did say he loved me. And for some reason that made me think of that documentary, Tell Them You Love Me, about another white woman victimizing, taking advantage of a non-white male. Let me see. Chapter 27 at the beginning, it says, as a mother, Mary Kay had never been the type to hang out around the house and vacuum. That's interesting because earlier in the book, someone was talking about the vacuum cleaner she had and how fancy it was, but she won't hang around the house and vacuum. You should be vacuuming, especially when you have 4 children. When she takes Vili to Alaska, it said she sat up till 4 a.m. holding his hand on the Davenport downstairs. Stephen was in the bedroom. It blows your mind. It was like Stephen was hypnotized. What are people thinking? Like, when she's doing this, when she's holding hands until 4 a.m., what is the rest of the family doing? I guess they just allowed it, but it's so, again, like, inappropriate. And that word seems to not be strong enough. I need to come up with a better word. Incorrect. Let me see. Other incidents raised an eyebrow or two among Steve's family. One family member was puzzled by Mary Kay's behavior at the last family gathering. It was a wedding reception. She never once spoke to any adults. She was always hovering around the kids' table, conversing and playing with them as though they were her peer group. It was very peculiar and not like Mary Kay at all. It seems like I've heard that before in this text. Sure, she was attentive to her children, but she liked to be noticed and praised for her lovely outfits by the adults, too. That night, she was a child, too. No, she was not a child. This is a full-grown white woman in her 30s. The way the author writes this, he's so sympathetic, and he's like supporting this narrative of she's not a fully grown white woman who is in control of her actions. And on that same page, it said Mary Kay had always been interested in her students. Now, that can be interpreted in more than one way. I just think that phrasing is really interesting. Let me see. And they kept talking about the way the baby was going to look. It says Michelle didn't fault her childhood friend for the deception, and she asked, will Steve believe that it's his baby? Mary Kay doubted it. The baby will have black hair. And right there, just genetic recessive. White people know that their traits are not going to be passed on when they produce offspring with non-white people. That blonde hair is not going to continue. And also in this session, I feel like the blonde hair came up more than one time, even if the word blonde wasn't used. Because right there, when they say the baby will have black hair, that's, implying, hey, I don't know. It made me think of the blonde hair, even though that word wasn't used. When Grandma Nadine, when she finds out about it, it said Nadine sat down on the sofa up against row after row of family pictures. Steve and Mary Kay and the children, every combination of every member in the family, all of the beautiful blonde-headed kids smiling wide and sweetly. I just think that the blondness is, I think that's what they think is so beautiful. Next page, whether they kept their mouths shut or not, there was going to be no hiding it. The boy was a Samoan, and the baby would look like him too. Same page. They're talking about Steve raising the baby as his own, and it said kind of hard to do if the baby has coal black hair and dark skin, exclamation mark. Like, it seems so important to them. And when whoever was called Secret Squirrel, I can't remember her name, but it was like they felt so sorry for Steve. Outside of his 4 children, they saw Steve as the true victim in the whole thing. Maybe that wasn't Secret Squirrel, but how Steve as the true victim in the whole thing? Like, he wasn't raped. I mean, his situation definitely sucks. I don't know who wants to be married to a child rapist, but I just don't see him as the true victim. He's just not the person who's been victimized the most. Let me see. It was weird when Mary Kay shows up at Danielle's. I'm sorry, her name is Danielle. She shows up at Danielle's house, the lady who has the 4 or 6 children, and they're hanging out with Mary Kay after school, and she has Vili, and she's talking real fast, and she says he's been locked out of the house, and his dad's going to be mad at him, and she leaves Vili there. And the lady, Danielle, calls Vili's father. First, that confused me because I thought Vili's father was in jail. And then the father says, "Are you sure he's there?" That's unusual. That's kind of a weird question to ask, especially after someone calls you and says your child is over there. But I just thought that the way he didn't seem to believe her, and that makes sense, that there's already been some unusual activity or deception occurring. I think when Mary Kay, she doesn't want the other little girl, I think it was Katie. She doesn't want Katie to come to the school anymore after school. I think she just wanted to be alone with Vili, or just isolate the boys so she could do what it was she wanted to do. When she started making these accusations that Steve Letourneau had become violent and abusive towards her, said to the point of hitting, kicking, and pushing her to the ground, I'm not sure that stuff is true. I think she might have made some of that stuff up just to make Steve look bad. Because she's done something so terrible, she has to kind of make it even, like, Steve is terrible and somehow this is partly his fault. Now, I could be incorrect about that. It's just, I don't know, it just seems so contrived, especially that she was writing down things. I don't know. I didn't believe it. The boundaries. Just the way she disregards boundaries. Like when the little girl asked the teacher at the school, where is Mary? And the teacher's like, Mary who? And she's like, well, Mary. She's like, no, I don't. And she said, Mary Letourneau. I mean, who calls teachers by their first name in elementary school? That is bonkers. And they also talked about her wearing like these many layers of clothes. It says she wore tennis shoes and layers of T-shirts, sometimes as many as 3 or 4 at once. She also wore tights and sometimes 2 skirts at the same time. That is so weird. Like, okay, sometimes wearing 2 shirts isn't that crazy, but I have a hard time thinking of a situation in which you would put on 2 skirts at the same time. I don't understand that one at all. And they talked about a number of students at Shorewood favoring baggy clothes, and they called it the rapper or gangster style. And I saw a picture of Mary Kay Letourneau with Vili, and she had on, I kid you not, she had on a baggy white T-shirt, the way people used to do like at the end of the 90s or the beginning of the 2000s. She had on a like really big white T-shirt, and she had on a Kango. It was pretty interesting. I don't know. I've talked for a while. I think that's all I have for right now. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
A Kango. I don't know what to say on that. The Kango. Like, wow. Mary Kay. Okay. Quick correction, unless I misread, and I had to go back and reread this a few times myself because I was a little, with the Miss Donnell and the van where Mary Kay comes and says, oh man, it's almost midnight and we were working on the bulletin board and everything, and oh man, he was locked out and can he just stay here? And ooh. I don't think that was Vili, because when Miss Donnell, when she gets to the end, she says, I've been thinking about this. She says, you know what I think this was? I think she wanted to get Vili alone, and so she just dumped it, because she doesn't name the kid. She just said this is a child of her friend. And I think you pointed out correctly, Vili's dad is in prison, so she couldn't have been called and had know his dad to be calling him, be like, really? Vili's there? I don't think that was Vili. I think, because she says at the end, Vili, her theory is that Mary Kay, this was her scheme. I got Vili in the car. We're going to go to Alki Beach or wherever and get down, and we're just going to drop, Fred or whoever this dude, we're going to drop him off wherever, which is really what, if that's what this is, like, even if it had been Vili, that's messed up too, but if that's what this was, I got Vili out in the car, and we need to get some, us time, and get on out of here, Fred. Like, I don't know why she didn't take him, wanted to pawn him off somewhere else to get some of the suspicion off her, but man, white people do not care about children. Other folks can go back and look at that part with Mr. Nell, but because I thought the same thing at first too. I thought she was dropping off Vili, but I don't think that was Vili. I think Vili was probably still in the van, and they were going to get down. Anyway, much blood.
Thanks for that. That makes sense.
I'm sorry?
I just said thank you for saying that. That makes sense.
Right on. Other folks can let me know if I'm being goofy here, but because I thought the same thing too. When I thought she was dumping Vili off on Miss Donnell, and then I had to go back and read it again to like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Anyway, before we get retired firefighter and others, email number one quickly. As a teacher and school board member in New York, I find this book fascinating, though it reminds me of the Columbine mother whose purpose was to excuse the terrible parenting. That is so interesting because when Lauren just started out and she was talking about the Kango, all of it, really, the big T-shirt and the Kango for Mary Kay, and saying, you know, she's doing all this rape and getting away with it, it reminded me of Sue Klebold and being able to do all this, and it ain't me, it's not my fault, I didn't do anything wrong, I'm innocent, same type of thing. And it's not caring about children. It seems like a lot of parallels to me, maybe in more ways than one, but excusing terrible, and it's a lot of terrible parenting in this book on Mary Kay's part in a myriad of ways. Terrible teaching, terrible parenting, terrible nurturing of children. Let's see, endangering of children would be better. The amount of words used to build up Mary Kay as a great teacher speaks directly to how white supremacy relies on enablers to continue. Facts. To answer your questions, I encounter Mary Kay teacher behavior every day that, one, takes advantage by showing up to work whenever they want, and or two, sexually abusing in one form or another non-white children. Now that's the part right there that I said, man, how common is this? Is this, you know, an anomaly? This is kind of a one-off type of a thing? Or, and when I say this, I mean specifically white female teachers sexually abusing non-white students. How common do we think this is? Is this, you know, this happens once every blue moon? Or is this kind of standard operating procedure in the system of white supremacy because so many teachers, K through 12 in the U.S. and beyond, are white women? Is this something that we should be talking to more non-white children, particularly non-white males, like, hey, man, watch out for them white women teachers, man. Like, woo, from second grade on up, man. Whoa, watch out, man. Do we talk about this at all? Like I said, I ain't found nothing. I've been looking. I ain't found no Negro news publications from the 90s that mention Mary Kay Letourneau. Now, I haven't been able to look at every one, and I'm still checking, but thus far, zero. Maybe we didn't think about this case as racism, or didn't think it was important to black people at that time, or even now. Continues, I'll attempt to join the next session live, but feel the female reader of Mr. Olsen's book is purposeful in this presentation. Well, he means the narrator. Why? Why do people think they did that? If we've thought about it, because I had mentioned that earlier, that this is one of those books, and we've read, there are many books like this before, and we've done this. There have been times, for one, we read Stupid Talk, Crazy Talk. That book is written by a white man. We got a female to do the narration, and there, like I said, there are a number of other books where that does happen. There wasn't a particular reason. I just like the female narrator's voice. I wanted her to read the book that I also enjoy, but there wasn't a reason to switch the gender. I don't know. Maybe they did it purposely for this text. It's not like it's being told through the perspective of Mary Kay Letourneau, so yeah, I don't know. Do people think there was reasoning for that, or not really? Does that have an influence at all, female narrator for this text? Let us know. Star 61, other folks who dialed in with commentary, and then the email is untiljustice@gmail.com. Retired firefighter in Florida with us, as well as Irie.
Greetings, everyone. I was just took some notes, but I'm just thinking about what was being discussed. I would say that similar situations in this part of the world, identified as the Northwestern Hemisphere, it takes place on a very common experiences. Just here in Florida, and I constantly either watch the news or read the news at least once or twice a week. There's going to be a story about a adult mistreating a child in the workplace of public and private school teaching. It takes place on a common basis. Sex is so easily to come in contact with, even with the children, is at the touch of their fingers on a phone, as far as that's concerned. And it's just something that's pretty much common that goes on. Non-white people as well as white people is concerned. I see it quite often, and also I went to school to be a teacher myself, and for about the first 15 years that I was working full time as a firefighter, I also subbed. You know, a firefighter only works two shifts a week, so them other 3 days I would be subbing for the first 15 years of my career. So I would be in the environment. I wasn't full time, but I was in the environment directly. And, you know, that happens. It happens quite a bit, unfortunately. Anyway, the last statement that was said before the readings were cut off, I thought was quite important, where the person stated, "You don't be acknowledged as a good teacher and then be found out to be having sex with a child." There's got to be something. There's got to be something in between there. That's what the point I think was being made. It's something in between there. Is something that's very wrong that people have been missing, or at least in the standpoint ignoring. And that's what I was thinking about with this crime that took place. In the beginning of the reading, it informed me that others started to notice the weird behavior of Mary Kay, taking this child with her on trips right in front of her husband. It's very unusual to do things like that, to have a child that's a stranger to everybody in the group, you know, that sort of thing. Very weird. It's almost like, you know, if there was a meeting for let's say bring your pet to the pet park day, and you show up with a Bengal tiger, you're gonna get attention, you know, by doing that, and it's gonna be question mark type of attention. If you bring some child that nobody knows, and then it's found out that this child is somebody that was a student in your on your workplace. Her behavior, I have here, her behavior is a psychotic problem that I don't have a name for. I'm pretty sure there's a name for it. I just can't think of it, of her behavior. Vulnerable as hell, I have here written down, and that's basically is a situation that boy was in from day one. I would have liked to hear the word that she actually hunted her prey, which was this non-white male child. That's basically what she did, hunted him. And then finally, just like what that Bengal tiger lion would do with a deer, devour him. I have here, Mary Kay started using her expert scheming to have a child to have a non-white child. In other words, she goes to some very drastic measures to be able to, I don't know, get some kind of attention or something, you know, to do that, to have a child from a child, and the husband is aware of it. You know, I would only imagine that's why some people get killed. You know, the situation of murder-suicide type of situation will be going on with that. White people understand the genetic dominance, meaning the truth would be in the looks of the child. White people understand that better than anybody on the planet. This is something that was brought to my attention by the great Dr. Francis Quest Welsing. And I mean, it's a clear understanding of racism, white supremacy from a scientific standpoint. And that was discussed in the first reading. She has already committed crimes, she had already committed crimes as far as this reading that would make her eligible for a lifetime of solitary confinement or the death penalty. That would be my, you know, I mean, I may be an exception to it, but that's my thoughts as I was listening to the reading that she was qualified for. Mary Kay's scheming is to get rid of all the other children now that she has Billy as her sex slave. That's what I was thinking about when was mentioned where she basically scolded someone to not bring that other female child around anymore, where she pretended that she did not have that much of a social connection with the child. She was just practicing a scheme to get everybody else around from around her and what she would be doing with this male child. I would say Steve, her husband, was, you know, a psychotic person also, and was also at the same time affecting their children. Both parties are really deranged. I have also. I wonder how many white groups have this problem, but they can conceal it. I just wonder. It thought came to my mind how many white people have this similar or same problems and exist around, you know, in this part of the world as well as other places. Mary Kay's co-workers accepts her behavior, except for the newer teachers. In other words, that makes sense. You know, the people that was there when she first got the job, basically, you know, was used to her doing what she's doing, and she has a very clever. That's one thing about people who are like her. They are very witty and clever in their deception, and they're able to convince people. But a newer person who's let's say a person who's well trained in what it means to be a teacher, they would say, there's something strange about that. You know, they would really, you know, trip out, you know, on somebody doing the things that she was doing, if that makes sense. This is my baby, was one of her comments when somebody straightforward asked her about the situations dealing with her and a child, and she's being pregnant. This is typical of a lot of white people, that when you ask them a question, they would not give you an answer, and that no answer would be in such a sophisticated, diabolical fashion. You know, that I am quite used to that. And last but not least, this white person I have here violated every restriction dealing with co-workers and children. She basically, you know, to anybody who can see real, was not conducting herself in a way that a professional person should behave. And that's my commentary on the first reading. Thanks for listening.
Not being professional. At the minimum. At the minimum. Much obliged. Retired firefighter in Florida. And she absolutely did prey on Groom, Vili, and probably some others too. Like, I think that's been pointed out. You do not go from following all the protocols, behaving in a proper non-criminal manner as an adult white teacher, to raping a 12-year-old. Like, that just, like, come on. I mean, come on. Irie, if you have someone who works in the classroom. Now, let's see, did you all, before you were allowed to get in there and start teaching and battling illiteracy, which we heard mentioned in the text, was there any discussion in any of your academic programs like, hey, don't be no Mary Kay. Keep your paws to yourself. If any of the students say, oh, Miss Irie, I just swoon every time you come into the classroom, and you my girlfriend. You gonna be my boo, and no. Don't be no Mary Kay. Did you all have any sort of discussion of that sort?
No. Just like we didn't get Alice training. I know that's different, but since we talking about Columbine, we didn't get no Alice training. We didn't get no talks about how not to be a pedophile if you are one, I guess. And then I think the most training I ever got officially from any school district I substituted in was basically how to get to the front office to go, let them know I was there for my assignment. And then bloodborne pathogens. But I decided to chime in this first half because I think you asked if we talked to our offspring about, hey, there could be a teacher that would want to abuse you sexually. And if we talked to our offspring, and I did, and that's why my offspring was able to tell me basically what happened. And, I'm not saying that teens and children don't keep certain secrets. Obviously they do. But it's some stuff I'm proud to say, attempted parent, my son didn't keep to himself, which was an attempted sexual abuse by a white female teacher, blonde as well, who played dumb. I had no idea. I didn't mean it like that. Anyhow, I'm sorry. I'm getting flashbacks and I'm getting mad. I wanted to say real quick two things. When I saw the picture again with her and Vili, I thought about the clip you played, and I think Firefighter was also bringing that up too. The clip you played by Dr. Wells about how that lady went to Hawaii when she went to Hawaii and she saw how beautiful the people were there, and she felt inferior. I think that's also a part of it, dominating someone that is also powerless because of the status of not even being declared illegal or even being close mentally to being an adult. I thought about that. Another thing I thought about, because I just listened to the audio book over the weekend, that your presentation on the cows is swango. She's an educational swango. She don't know how to teach. He wasn't a doctor. He didn't know what he was doing. He knew how to hurt people, though, and she knows how to mislead and miseducate children, and she definitely knows how to be deceitful to other white people because of that whole, they're golden. She's golden. What? Like, who cares? Like, What does being blind have to do with the fact that you come into this woman's classroom and you can't tell where nothing is? I am a proud cat godmother. That's what I call myself. If I allow cat feces to pile up for even 2 days, I'm going to have a problem. She let cat feces stay in her classroom from the last school year, and parents saw it, children saw it, the principal saw it, and nothing happened. So this is high crimes and misdemeanors. She started her penetration test by being a miseducator and going into the school system not knowing what she was doing. And when she saw she could get away with that, she said, well, damn, I'll be able to do, there ain't nothing I can't do in this piece. That's my opinion. Plus, her husband, who is not a so-called apex or alpha man, he's letting her, I can't say letting, I don't even know, because I ain't a white woman and I've never been, so I don't know how white men and women, their duality works. But he, to a certain extent, is enabling the imbalance. So she started in the home, then she traveled and spread it to the schools with her non-professionalism and her ineptitude, and then she graduated to being a full-on pedophile. And I'll mute my line.
Much obliged, Irie. Now, Grandma Nadine, racist suspect, Grandma Nadine said, hey, Steve, who wear the pants in the family? You let her run wild and, rape all the brown children? Who wear the pants in the family? Mary Kay, wear the plants on the plantation. And maybe white women in general, because it sounds like Grandma Nadine sound like she probably wore the pants too. So, I mean, hey, who run the plantation? Anyway, she said they did not get correct training for Reb vodka if they come to shoot up the school. Or, oh man, don't be no Mary Kay. What to do if Vili come in and say, I want you, I'm grown, I'm mannish, I need you. And what do? Come on. Let's see. Star 61. Other folks have commentary. Really quick before we get to audio segment 2. Let's see. Puyallup, like I said, if I had still been in Milwaukee when we started reading this, I would have wigged out because I know all the places that they are talking about. I can't say beloved Puyallup, but still Puyallup. Some of this I would be kind of upset because like Puyallup, all of Washington State is Seattle. Puyallup is like 45 minutes from Seattle. That's why I said, now, if you live in Florida, all of Washington State is Seattle. I get it. Oregon is probably Seattle too. I get it. But anyway, it's 45 minutes. Puyallup is 45 minutes from Seattle. And that's like, if there's no wacky traffic or anything like that, that's just regular. It's 45 minutes from Seattle. I didn't say that about Burien and White Center because it's 10 minutes. If he had said non-white people in Puyallup never go to Seattle, it's 45 minutes. Like, let's see. They brought the brown boy to Anchorage. Man, I mean, that's like for real. Do you take your boy toy literally? Like he's traveled to, like you just bring him on the trips and things. You take your side piece. Woo, what in the world? Let's see. And they said what was going on. They got there and left. Mary Kay left her biological white children tired, cranky at the restaurant for hours, while she and Vili out whipping the van. I thought she was a good mom. We've heard that like over and over. Perfect. All-American family, all-American family, perfect family, blonde family, perfect family, great mom, tremendous mom, amazing mom, over and over and over and over again. What kind of mom leaves their children in some string? We're like Alaska is far. Talk about Pew. Like Alaska is far from White Center, Washington State. Like I think that might be close to 1,000 miles. Like we're gonna go to some restaurant and beat it. Like me and Vili got what? Jesus. And then they said they didn't like Vili. Why y'all didn't like the brown boy? Why you didn't? Mary Kay like the brown boy. Why don't you like the brown boy? They say he thought the brown boy was illiterate. How is the brown boy illiterate? He was in Mary Kay class. He's supposed to be the smartest in the world. How are you in an art class? Real talk. White people do this sort of thing all the time. If this had been like 2025, they'd have had Vili at the Pride Parade. They'd have had pictures. Mary would have had a rainbow Kango, and they'd have been at the Pride Parade. Why is anti-sex, LGBTQI, all the rest of it, or even art, why is that more important than Vili being able to read? And I believe that. I believe that. If they said, because they didn't do no name calling, they didn't say nothing, he was racist or whatever. I mean, I guess that could be racist, but I believe that. He probably was illiterate, or at minimum had some reading comprehension difficulty, could have been dyslexic, could have need glasses, anything like that, but I believe he had some reading problems. Mary Kay, you supposed to be this wizard teacher. Man, whoa, before we get to the art class, because you need to read for the art, right? You got to know what paint you're getting and all that. No cerulean blue from Carolina blue. You need to read to do that, right? So before we do the extracurricular art class, let's get you some remedial reading, and then maybe we'll get to the painting, and we can do something strange for some. Hey, but reading, we're gonna read first. Let's see. Steve was not hypnotized. I resented that. That is a direct quote, so apparently that's what they said. Steve was not. What are you talking about? A grown white man. Now, Irie said he wasn't an apex white man. Okay, he's still a grown white man. What do you mean? They told us last week they used to argue about the brown boy. Now, they weren't talking about Vili, but he cannot. This is your wife. This is in your house. She's pregnant, and we ain't done nothing in a minute. And that brown, what do you mean hypnotized? What are you even talking about, man? Rest in peace, Big. Let's see. And that's see, and we get the same thing. That's that white people are ignorant. See, they're not aware. Why is it always, man, he lived with her. He know what, they probably had sex there. And white people are not really interested in all that. Like whatever. I might have somebody on the side. I might have my own little chicken. I mean, I might be doing the same thing on the side. Like, what? I got all kinds of people come through the airport at SeaTac. So, let's see. They said that they had so much white people cannot be ignorant about racism. Remember when they had the whole royal disgrace around racism, and oh my goodness, and they're going to be upset because Duchess Megan, oh Lord, what is the child going to look like? And it's not going to be blonde. Oh Lord, it's not going to be pale. Oh Lord, it's going to have melanin. Oh Lord, what we going to do? Oh Lord, I don't even want no tea no more. Oh, you ruined everything. Oh, remember, we just heard all that. And they're going to do the exact same thing. How I'm going to pretend, talking about Steve, how I'm going to pretend this is my child, dark as his is. Run it, look at it. We already been fighting about the brown. I told you this should have been the title of the book, man. Mommy and daddy fight about the brown boy, and put her with the Kango. He might have sold 10 million anyway, but he could have sold 50 million. You put that out right after the O.J. Simpson trial. Mommy and daddy fight about the brown boy. I love it. That should have been the title. What is it? Loving You. Get out of here, man. Loving You is. Just give Luther Ingram some quarters and mommy and daddy fight about the brown boy. They can still make that like a documentary or something. What is going on? Let me see. Anything else get in? Let's see. Oh, my. That Nadine sat down on the sofa up against row after row of family pictures. Steve and Mary, Mary Kay and the children. Every combination of every member in the family. All of the beautiful blonde-headed kids smiling wide and sweetly. It was all a lie, and I cannot, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing emphasized like no one's business. All of that is a mutation, if it's even authentic, and I think Lauren has kind of shamelessly led the charge. I seen Mary Kay's roots, and that is not blonde. I think she is not no blonde. I can see roots. My eyes work well, thankfully, shamelessly. Mary Kay not even with us, anyways. Anyway, all of that, authentic or no, is mutation, white, genetic annihilation, and worshiping these phenotypical characteristics that are loosely associated with people who are albinos, mutations. That's that blonde hair and all of that lack of pigmentation. That's what all that is. Let's see. Last one. That's one. They said they felt sorry for Steve. Yes, I felt sorry for Steve. Outside of his 4 children, they saw Steve as the true victim in the whole thing. Now, we done heard twice Larry King and prominent white people say, whoa, 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 ho, 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 ho. Vili is not no victim. Don't you even put your mouth together to put no, unless you're saying Vili. That's it. He was not. No, I told you he was co-eds. We take college classes together. We painted. They gonna come back and say, the brown boy was not the true victim. It was not even his mother and all. The true victim, Steve. Slanging suitcases at SeaTac and white woman running up his credit card debt. Gotta come home and she's pregnant by the brown boy, the disgrace of it all. Own mother asked me if I wear the pants in my family, and I gotta say no. The brown boy wear the pants in the family. Oh, the disgrace. He's the real. Are you serious? If anything, you aid and abet. At minimum, I would have had more respect for you, Steve. Pick up the phone and snitch, man. We ain't got to argue about the brown boy. Why are you with SeaTac, police? Steve ain't snitchy. He goes stomp around the house mad. I done lost to the brown boy. What is going on? Next audio segment. If you have commentary you didn't get to share, write it down and we'll have ample time. Gregg Olsen. What should have been mommy and daddy fight about the brown boy. Audio segment number 2.
At his wife's urging, Kyle phoned Steve's younger sister Stacy in Alaska to discern what she knew. Stacy recounted the same story, adding that everyone in the family had known about it for months. It started in September when Steve discovered love letters and journal entries written by Mary Kay. He confronted the boy at his house and told him to back off his wife. Dick Letourneau had wanted to turn Mary Kay into the police, but decided not to because of the impact it would have on his 4 grandchildren. He knew what would happen, Linda said later. They all knew. Stacy explained that her brother had seen an attorney. They got a lawyer. They were trying to get him a quick divorce, but it cost too much for Steve to do it, so he backed out. She also disclosed the boy was Hispanic or Asian. Family members had met him when Mary Kay brought him to Alaska that summer. Linda could barely take it. She spoke up and told Stacy that Mary Kay had to be stopped. "Stacy, I'm going to give your dad 1 week to do it. If he doesn't do it, I'm going to turn her in." Stacy understood. She had been tortured over the whole thing, too. Mary Kay was a sick woman. Stacy hated what she did, but her hands were tied. Kyle and Linda got into their hot tub and talked about what had happened, the shock of it all, what could be done. Several hours and glasses of wine passed. Linda didn't think she could wait for Dick Letourneau to do the right thing. He had known about it for months and hadn't taken care of it. Why would he do it now? "Kyle, I have to turn her in," she said finally. Her husband understood, but he was reticent about getting too involved. Not because he approved of what Mary Kay had done, but because his family had made it so clear that loyalty demanded silence. "If you do it," he said finally, "just don't tell me." Linda Gardner couldn't keep it inside. After a sleepless night, she phoned her brother and told him what they had learned about Mary Kay. "Linda," her brother said, "if you don't tell, I'm going to. She has to be turned in." "I waited," she said later. "I stayed awake all night, sick to my stomach. I knew what I had to do." Linda Gardner kept her promise to her husband. She didn't tell Kyle Gardner the morning of February 25th, 1997, that she was going to report Mary Kay to the authorities after their grade school-age daughter was out the door. She was scared. She felt sorry for Steve and the Letourneau children. She knew Mary Kay would lose her job and that prison was a possibility. She had separated Mary Kay, the wife and mother, from Mary Kay, the woman who was having sex with a boy. She's going to keep doing it, she reminded herself in an effort to bolster her resolve. She's got to be stopped. She checked on her toddler son before working up the nerve to pick up the phone. The image of her sweet little boy was all the courage she needed. Linda Gardner never wanted anyone to harm a child. She was a mother, too. She couldn't understand how anyone could take a child's innocence as she believed Mary Kay had. She dialed the number for Child Protective Services, gave her name and phone number, and told her story. "You're going to have to call the school district," the woman said. "You have to talk to them because she's a teacher." Linda was flabbergasted, and she hung up. "Hello," she thought. "I just told you that a teacher is having sex with one of her students, and you want me to call the school district?" She didn't think she could do it again, but knew she had no choice. She called Highline School District offices in Burien. A secretary answered. "I need to talk to somebody," Linda said. "The superintendent. I need to talk to somebody high up. This is not a minor thing." When the secretary pressed her for the urgency of the call, Linda told her. "This is regarding a teacher that has been having sex with one of her students." "I'll take your name and phone number," the secretary said. "Someone will call you back." A little while later, Dick Vitanich, area administrator for the district, phoned Linda and calmly listened as she nervously spat out her story. She wasn't certain of all the facts and said so. She wasn't even certain of the kid's identity or even the name of the school where Mary Kay taught. But the man didn't ask many questions. He was strangely brief considering the subject. "I'll check it out," he said. And that was it. This is weird, Secret Squirrel thought. Book 3. Rapist. Having fun with me was risky. One time you got hurt. Sometimes you were just yelled at or questioned. Then Steve found out and you gave up on us. Mary Kay Letourneau in a note to Vili Fualaau, fall 1996. Call me as soon as it's safe. I know for sure you don't want me calling you at the wrong time, so you call. You are allowed to. He said you can. Anyway, he's going back to work, so he goes to sleep at 9 o'clock. Mary Kay Letourneau in another note to Vili Fualaau, fall 1996. I think what I've done is horrible, and I wouldn't want anyone to think I believe it's acceptable. It's not. Mary Kay Letourneau in a July 1997 interview with the Seattle Times. The initial horror upon hearing the charges, rape of a child, is natural, but the continued creation of a little boy victim and a sick perpetrator has to stop. Mary Kay Letourneau in a press release, November 1997. Chapter 35. The morning of the day after she made the call to the school district was Linda Gardner's 33rd birthday. She was still jittery over the day before, but the worry and struggle over doing the right thing was behind her. Ahead that night was dinner at Harbor Lights in Tacoma with her husband and her father up from Arizona. At 8:30 a.m., the phone rang. It was Patricia Mailey, a detective from King County Police, explaining that CPS had forwarded a report about her call. Linda's heart smacked against her rib cage. "You're going to have to call me back. I'm getting my daughter ready for school," she said. The police! Later, when they spoke, Linda asked the sex crimes detective to promise to maintain her anonymity. She didn't want anyone to know that she'd been the one to blow the whistle on Mary Kay. The detective listened as Linda recounted the conversations with her mother-in-law and Steve Letourneau's sister. The detective promised that she'd do her best to keep Linda out of it, but there was no guarantee. The allegations were very serious. Linda told her the boy's name was Billy. Later that Wednesday morning, Dick Vitanich, the Highline area administrator, called to see if Linda would come to the district office to discuss her story with their lawyers. Linda flatly refused. "I've already talked to Pat Mailey of the King County Police. I'm done." The casualness of the first conversation with the district had been gnawing at Secret Squirrel. It seemed suspicious. "Dick," Linda said before hanging up, "you guys already knew, didn't you? You already knew something before I called, didn't you?" "As a matter of fact, someone had called last week and tipped us off," he said. As the president of the Highline Education Association, the district's teachers' association, Susan Murphy had fielded more than one call of a purported sexual relationship between teacher and student. Most were untrue and remedied by a quick investigation. But the one coming at the end of February 1997 was different. Joe McGeehan, Highline School District Superintendent, phoned Susan at her Riverton Heights office with a heads-up. "I need to let you know that we've had a call that one of our teachers is pregnant by a 7th grade student." It almost required repeating the words, they were so staggering. Susan was told that the allegation was under review and had not been made public. She was alerted because, the superintendent said, it will come out. A teacher in the district since 1969, in the middle of a 3-year term as president of the HEA, Susan Murphy had never heard of a female teacher becoming pregnant by a student. She caught her breath as the superintendent told her what little he knew. It was a family member who made the phone call to the district, and at that moment the district officials were doing all they could to either verify or disprove the charges. The allegations didn't seem like they could be genuine. Conventional wisdom had it that such sexual liaisons only happened between male teachers and their female students, usually in the high school setting. Never had she heard of the reverse. And even more unbelievable to Susan Murphy was the tremendous age difference. A 7th grader and a teacher? Susan hoped that the internal investigation and any police involvement would clear the teacher without embarrassment and without long-term career damage. Teachers had been targets for such crank calls from family members or students and parents with axes to grind. The HEA president didn't know the woman in question, only that she was described in that first call as an elementary school teacher in her 30s. None of it computed, she later said. What could she possibly have in common with a student of that age? That was the initial reaction, even before the breach of trust, the anger, the embarrassment, and all of that. It was not Billy, it was Vili. The night at the marina had not been forgotten by the district security director and the officers who had heard about it through the district employee wife of a cop. When they thought of Mary Letourneau and a relationship with a student, they came up with only one name. Like a charades game, it sounded like Billy. After calls to the school district and the Des Moines police about that early morning at the marina the previous spring, Detective Mailey drove to the Cascade Middle School in White Center to see Vili Fualaau. It was shortly after 10 a.m. when she came face to face with the boy. He was slight-framed, a little over 5 feet, with a shy, almost sweet demeanor. Later in her report she wrote, "I asked him what kind of relationship it was. He was very quiet and did not say anything at that time. I asked him if it was a boyfriend-girlfriend type relationship. He said it was. I asked him if it went any further than that. Vili said they had sex." The detective knew what she had. She arranged for an emergency joint interview with an assistant King County prosecuting attorney and drove Vili downtown. There, Vili told a story that included the exchange of rings, love letters, and, finally, sexual intercourse starting in the spring of 1996. The prosecuting attorney wrote Vili's version of the first time. He said he spent the night at her house and it just happened. Mary's husband was working. The kids were asleep. He said they were in the den watching shows. He thinks Braveheart. He said she started talking to him about psychics and stuff like that. That a psychic she supposedly talked to said she was going to have a hard life and told Mary that she was going to meet someone with dark skin and be with him. Then they just did it. Vili told the lawyer and the cop that Mary Kay said her husband beat her and that he shouldn't tell anyone what had happened. She could lose her job. He also acknowledged that his brother and his best friend knew about the relationship. His brother had walked into the bedroom at the Normandy Park house one time and saw them together on the bed. After the interview with the 13-year-old Samoan boy, Pat Massey took the boy back to his house and drove to the school, and minutes later Mary Kay Letourneau was called out of a Shorewood staff meeting. It was 4:30 p.m. "I think you know what this is about," Pat Massey said. Mary Kay stood there for a moment with her hands at her sides. Her face was white. Her red Nordstrom t-shirt and black pleated skirt hung over her belly. It was clear she was 6 months pregnant. "I think I might have an idea," Mary Kay said. One teacher who saw her leave with the police officer assumed that there had been a death in the family, maybe a terrible traffic accident involving Steve. It looked rough. She hoped Mary Kay would be all right. It was out in the detective's car that Mary Kay Letourneau was arrested for rape of a child. She was upset, but focused on two things. She wanted to know if Vili was all right, and she wanted to know what would happen to her class. Would she be returning to school? Detective Massey told her that she thought Vili was doing fine, and that Highline Security would probably be contacting her about her job. In the interrogation room at the King County Police Precinct in Kent, Mary Kay began to unravel. She cried and stopped, and cried some more. Mary Kay told the detective that she didn't know what to say or do. She wanted to know how Vili's family felt about her and the situation. She wanted to know if it was Steve who had turned her in. The detective refused to answer. When Pat Massey asked about the letters that Linda said Steve had found, Mary Kay said Steve sent them to his family in Alaska for safekeeping. She described the letters as a blackmail tool. The detective wrote, "She said he was using these letters to keep her from leaving him and obtaining a divorce." When the detective pressed Mary Kay for the identity of the father of the baby she was so visibly carrying, the teacher said there was a 99.9% chance it was not Steve's. "I told her at that time that I hoped it would be her husband's and not a 13-year-old child's baby. She said she did not want it to be her husband's." Mary Kay cried some more. She told the detective that she was tired of being alone, and she had found comfort in the relationship with Vili. She knew the relationship was wrong, but there was a reason for it. They were in love, but the detective wasn't listening to her. She later said she thought the detective was cold and sarcastic. "Just the way she asked the questions," Mary Kay said, mimicking a snotty, condescending voice. "It was like, 'So where's the ring? So tell me about the psychic.'" That evening, Mary Kay found her way to Shorewood music teacher Beth Adair's Seattle home. The visit cemented a bond that would grow stronger over time. In her 50s, divorced, with children ranging from a teenager to one about Mary Kay's age, Beth Adair had known Mary Kay since her student teaching days at Gregory Heights. "We had a connection and an understanding," Mary Kay said later. "Beth is a wonderful woman, and we connected on that level, woman to woman. She understood me. She considered us her kids, Vili and I." The music teacher scooped Mary Kay up in her arms and told her she'd be all right. That night there were tears and phone calls. Mary Kay called her father and told him what had happened. John Schmitz promised he'd come see his daughter. He'd bring her a car because Steve would have the van. She'd be able to get through it. When she finally got home, it was after 3 a.m. Steve and the children were asleep, and it felt so good to be home. In some ways, she thought, it felt like nothing had changed. But it had. The sun came up, and the children were dressed for school. But their mother wasn't taking them that day. The balance of the hurried morning race had been altered. Mary Kay watched the clock, and as it moved closer to 9:05, she knew just how different her world was about to become. She wasn't going back to Shorewood Elementary. She thought of her class back in room 39. The children had left HHH the day before, never to see their teacher again. I tried to put my heart out to each one of them, she said later. I imagined myself in front of the class, the clock, the bulletin boards, and their faces. I went around the room and looked into their faces, each one, sending them an angel of peace to let them know it would be all right, and I hadn't forgotten them. The baby would be ultimate proof, of course, and Vili Fualaau's statement was on record about the sexual relationship. The case wasn't a difficult one for law enforcement, but the why of it all was more elusive than in most cases. It was the papers gathered under a search warrant from Stephen Letourneau Sr. that same day that provided the greatest glimpse into what was going through Mary Kay Letourneau's mind. Steve handed over a sheaf of papers, notes scrawled on scraps, comments made on envelopes. The author was his wife, Mary Kay. But was the writer the person so many admired and loved? There were 6 pages of lists of song titles and the recording artists, but oddly for a schoolteacher, names were horribly misspelled. Mariah Carey, C-A-R-L-E, You'll Always Be a Part of Me. Whitney, W-I-T-N-E-Y, I'll Always Love You. Dionne Warwick, D-I-O-N. That's what friends are for. The downward spiral that had begun so many months ago had quickened its pace as indicated by the coherency of the writings. Her handwriting was erratic, and her thoughts reflected a woman falling apart. Mary Letourneau found herself falling faster and faster toward the point of no return. She wrote of attending a late fall family wedding in Chicago, dancing with her father, and thinking of Vili. Steve had called the Schmidts home before Mary's arrival and warned them that their daughter was headed toward big trouble. He refused to elaborate, telling them it was something she had to tell them herself. When she returned, she had made some notes in her journal, but then the neat handwriting had started to reveal the stress of the author. Her words were ruptured, the edits were careless, the phrasing typical of a schoolgirl. So I told my mother and father everything. I told them about the baby. I told them about you even, that you are underage, not exactly how young. I think they think you're about 15. She wrote how after she told her father that Vili was one of her students, he said he remembered the boy. Mary gushed how my mom acted like she likes everything about you. But according to the notes, Mary and John Schmidts were also worried. They warned their daughter that she could be in big trouble if someone found out. Her letter continued. Promise on your life not to ever, no matter how someone questions you, to ever tell about us. Not even a kiss can be told. Other notes were revealing, too. Among them was the briefest communication, but 15 words, that suggested a dynamic not considered. He had written, Who said you can put your legs raped around me? Mary's note back, I was just getting comfortable. If either cop or husband had taken a moment to really assess what was going on between teacher and student, they might have found a clue in the smallest exchange, not in the obvious spelling mistake of raped instead of wrapped. The note had been written when speaking was not advisable. More than likely when Steve was asleep in the bedroom, and Mary and Vili were camped out on the couch watching videos. She was trying to snuggle and fantasize about a future with Vili, and yet she was apologizing for wanting to be close to him. Vili was telling her to back off, not because he didn't want to have sex with her, but maybe he just didn't want the closeness for which she had longed. Who had been in control of the relationship? For those who bothered to consider the tiny note, a different scenario was possible. Vili Fualaau was in charge. Other missives and writings indicated that Vili called Mary when he wanted sex. He allowed her to see him when it was convenient and didn't interfere with hanging out with his buddies or the young girls he preferred. Mary Kay had wanted love and attention. She could only have Vili's attention when he gave his permission. In another note, she wrote, I see and feel you wanting me to fill in for the sex you're not getting from your school girlfriends. That's not why I'm in your life. Don't call me ever to be a fill-in. She was functioning like a junior high girl writing lists and making plans for a fairy tale future. They were a reincarnated love. She was worried about getting his mother's permission to see him, her parents' support when she needed it. She was a girl in love with a boy from the wrong side of the tracks, A favorite song asked the question, how could it be wrong if it feels so right? Rumors percolated through the Shorewood neighborhood that something bad was brewing at the elementary school. Real bad. A teacher there was in big trouble. Word around the area was that soon everyone was going to know some shocking news. Dannelle Johnson didn't need anyone to tell her who was in trouble. God, I know it is going to be Mary Letourneau. I just know it, she told her husband. All those 7th graders going down there, it's going to be her. As the hours ticked closer to the disclosure of something big breaking at Shorewood, Dannelle saw something in her son that suggested he knew a bit more about what might be happening. She remembered later a time just before the news broke when her son, Drew, was out in the yard sobbing uncontrollably. It was as if his heart had been thrashed. He refused to say what it was that was hurting him so. After much prodding from his mother, Drew finally gave a lame excuse that some girl had dumped him. Then they all learned what so many had suspected. It was Mary and Vili. Dannelle was dazed. Not that it was Mary, but that it was Vili. She loved Neely Fualaau's son. He was a wonderful and talented boy. But she couldn't fathom what people were saying Mary Letourneau had done. I just couldn't imagine a grown woman having an affair with him. I couldn't even imagine the concept of what she could have possibly been thinking. There's a little break area on the ramp at SeaTac International Airport where Alaska Air employees can escape the wintry chill of the tarmac and catch a cup of coffee, Starbucks of course, and share the latest in passenger horror stories and, if there was any, a little airport gossip. If anyone had heard what was happening at the Letourneau house in Normandy Park, they kept it to themselves. It was so ugly that no one dared bring it up. Finally, Steve Letourneau approached some employees shortly after he had been contacted by Pat Maley of the King County Police. Usually a somewhat affable presence, Steve was apparently upset about something and wanted to talk. Joe Bendix, the flight attendant and former neighbor from Carriage Row condominiums, later described him as just heartbroken and freaking out. The look in his eyes telegraphed that he was in great pain. I want to tell you something before you read about it in the paper, Steve said, choosing his words carefully. Mary's been having an affair with one of her students. Oh, well, you know, things happen, Joe said. While he heard the word student, he hadn't considered the idea of age. In his mind, he thought the affair involved a young man, perhaps one she had taught who was now in high school or maybe even older. Mary had been teaching for some time, and it was possible, Joe Bendix thought, that the student was nearly grown. Student didn't mean a child. Steve was taken aback. Embarrassed as he seemed, it was clear that his message wasn't getting through to Joe. This kid is like a year older than Stephen, he said to hammer the point home. She was arrested for having sex with one of her students. Joe didn't know how to respond. He said he was sorry, and he hoped everything would be all right. Though Steve hadn't said anything about the depth or duration of the affair, Joe concluded that it had been a fling, a one-time transgression, a fluke. Things'll work out, he said. Things will be okay. Later, when Joe told Fran what he had heard, the two of them could make no headway in understanding what Steve had disclosed and what they would later read in their newspaper. Fran had never really cared for Mary Kay. She thought she was snooty. So Steve's revelations naturally brought forth some disdain, and, very surprisingly to Fran, a measure of unexpected sympathy. She didn't think what Mary Kay had done was okay by any stretch. Even if you are unhappy with your spouse, it's not grounds for having a relationship with a child, even if you think you might be in love with him. Or are you just grasping for attention? I really think she has a problem, Fran said. Her husband didn't disagree. And while neither of the Letourneaus' flight attendant former neighbors knew what was going to happen with what they had once considered the perfect family, they hoped Steve would get custody of the 4 children. The thought of the children brought a bittersweet smile. There's no doubt in my mind that Steve loves all of them. I think he was probably the most perfect father you could get. He doted over those kids and was proud of them, Joe said. Chapter 36. None could have prepared for the emotions that the letter from Highline School District would bring when children from Shorewood brought home word from the superintendent regarding allegations against Mary Letourneau. While many kids were teary and confused about what was going on, It was the reaction of the parents that brought the greatest wave of emotions. Lyle Matson stood apart from many classmates. He was nonplussed about the whole thing. He merely had an apology for his mother when he handed her the envelope. He quietly announced it was about Mrs. Letourneau and Vili Fualaau. "I should have told you sooner," he said. "It was kind of disgusting, so I didn't want to say anything." Tandy Matson studied the contents of the letter. "Did she ever do anything to you?" she finally asked her son, who had transferred into room 39 after Christmas. "No." "Okay," she said. The age difference between Mary Letourneau and Vili Fualaau did indeed disturb Tandy Matson, but she had a hard time seeing what happened between teacher and student as a terrible crime. It wasn't as though such things hadn't happened before. Tandy had known of teacher and student flings from her own days as a teenager. It wasn't out there in the open, but it was known. "When I was in high school, I knew plenty of girls messing with the football coach," she reminded her husband. Nick Matson had a different take. He didn't buy that kind of 30-something justification. He also refused to see what had transpired as a love story or a mistake, and because of their stubborn positions, he and Tandy went round and round about it. "It's child rape," Nick said as his wife reached over to hit the mute button on their giant television set. "The boy is a child. I don't care if it was a woman molesting a boy or an older guy molesting young girls. She's a sick woman." Tandy didn't feel that way at all. She thought that it was within the realm of possibility, maybe even probability, that Mary and Vili loved each other. "But," she conceded while her husband held to his hard line, "it may be puppy love, though, and I can't say it was his first time. I heard he's in a gang." Donnell Johnson's twins were among those who just couldn't see that anything that happened between Mary Letourneau and Vili Fualaau was wrong. Vili was a gentle soul, an artist. Mary was the beautiful and wise love of his life. For Donnell, there was no getting through to her son and daughter. It was a love affair, not a crime. "Whatever illness she's got a pretty good illness," she said later. She actually convinced him, and them too, that she was in love with him. Then when they got in her way of using him, even though I don't think she thought she was using him, then she started turning on them, trying to get rid of them so they wouldn't be in her way. Drew told his mother that she was wrong. He knew that Vili was in love, but Donnell dismissed the idea. He's too young to decide what he wants, and she's of an age where she should know that even if she did want it, she should wait. Not everyone was mortified, disgusted, or outraged when word went beyond Shorewood School grounds that Mary Letourneau and her former 6th-grade student Vili Fualaau had been having sexual relations. Katie Hogden nearly jumped out of her skin with joy when the first layers of secrecy began to peel away. The dark-haired teen with braces, the budding writer, the girl who never had a crossword for anyone, responded with euphoria. "Oh my gosh," she thought, "2 of my closest friends have found each other. That's so cool." The idea that there might be dire consequences didn't hit her. "The age thing didn't click," she said later. "When you hear that your friends are starting a relationship and that they have liked each other for so long, they are just perfect for each other." To Katie, it was beautiful, right, and romantic. It wasn't until she saw the news reports that cast it as a crime that she could acknowledge that it might have been wrong. It had been a year and a half since Kate Stewart had seen Mary Kay Letourneau. The break in their face-to-face contact had been the longest since their friendship started at Arizona State in 1982, but it was not an estrangement. Both chalked up the lapse to marriages, careers, but mostly to the responsibilities of running households with small children. Mary Kay and Steve had 4 children, and Kate and her doctor husband were right behind them with a son and 2 daughters. When a friend considered moving to Seattle, Kate suggested looking up Mary Kay for the scoop on the city's neighborhoods and schools. When the woman returned to Chicago, she told Kate that she had better call Mary Kay. There was urgency to her suggestion. "Your friend is in trouble," she said. "She's about to break." Kate suspected marital problems, and, frankly, wasn't all that concerned if that was the cause. Mary Kay could get past that, and, Kate thought, it was certainly high time for a divorce. "How are you?" she asked over the phone. "Well," Mary Kay hesitated, drawing out the one-syllable word to 2. "There's a lot going on." "What's going on? You're getting divorced?" "Yes." "Yeah, so?" We've all been waiting for this, Kate thought, without saying it. Is there someone? I hope there is someone. Now maybe you can love someone. Yes, there is someone, Mary Kay said softly. That's great. And I'm pregnant, she said. Well, you said there was someone. So what? Kate learned nothing about the other someone, though she understood he was a wonderful person and younger than Mary Kay. But as she had when she first told Michelle about it, Mary Kay did not let on just how much younger her beau was. Kate, of course, would learn more in the weeks and months to come, and she would consider why Mary Kay couldn't come out and tell her friends what had been going on and with whom. It was too much for her, she said later. I think there was a shame factor there, religion hassles, which I don't think she's come to terms with. She's got this divider. One side, she's devout and believes in God, wants to do the right thing. The other side of her says, there's nothing wrong with having fun. God wants me to have fun. God wants me to live life, and damn it, I've embraced that. The police had been by to make sure no other children had been molested by their favorite teacher. The school made offers of crisis counseling for those who needed it. And of course, the media was sniffing around. As for Vili Fualaau, he was still in class at Cascade Middle School. Shorewood music teacher Beth Adair wrote a note to Mary Kay describing how Vili was spaced out and subdued.
Say Vili spaced out and subdued. That's gang life, ain't it? You know, that's what you do out in White Center. They gang bang and listen to the boppity hip hop and snorting crack and fentanyl, all that, right? You know, he spaced out and subdued. That's what happened when they take your white woman away? Come on. It is not lost on me. I don't know about you all. They keep saying, you know, Mary Kay's devout Catholic. She talked about that in that Australian interview. I didn't play that part of it. But, you know, she's a devout Catholic and this clashes. No, it doesn't. Raping children does not clash with the Catholic Church at all. Anywhere in the known universe. And it's way too, and really, even at the time that this book was published, way too much. Anybody even come out their mouth and say that? Like, wait a minute, Mary Kay was running around with young boys, and she was Catholic? Really? Huh? That's, come on, man. Just add that to the registry, man. Anyway, in fact, Vili and his family, if they were Catholic, I'm not sure. I have to go and do the research, but that may have been a part of her grooming. They'll be especially susceptible, religion of white supremacy. I'm a blonde white woman. Hey, this is God in the flesh. Katherine, Massey, Book Club. Number to dial, 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. The email untiljustice@gmail.com. Folks that we missed totally. If you have commentary to share, let's see. Our caller, last four digits, 3215. 3215. Didn't hear you first time around. If you have commentary on Gregg Olsen's If Loving You Is Wrong, a.k.a. Mommy and Daddy Fight about the brown boy. 3215 should be with us.
Yes, they fight about the brown boy. Hey, everybody. I hope y'all can hear me all right. Took a couple of notes here. I've been listening, not live, but I've been caught up. So I had a question about they called it a sexual liaison, and I guess it's supposed to be like, I don't know what it is. I need some help with that. Let me see. They did make a point saying that it mostly had teachers, and they're preying on the girls.
That's a total lie. That is not true. I was born in the 70s. I was raised in the 80s. When I was in middle school, there was an English teacher that would invite all of our friends over one at a time to mow her lawn, and they were having sex with that woman. She was pedophiling on them. Yes, she was a grown woman. Yes. So it's not just the men. It's the white women as well. And did she lie about being beaten? She lied to this boy about being beaten by her husband. I mean, why would you talk about stuff like that? It's like with the earlier reads. It's like she's talking to children, about her relationship and how things are going, and all over the place. She told the Popo when she was in there getting interrogated, I guess, she told them that she didn't know what to do. Like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. But in the earlier readings, this woman she calls command of everybody, whether it's a tornado going on in her house where a whole bunch of children are getting ready. She's in charge. She's telling people, she's giving orders. But then she gets at the police department and she don't know what to do. All right, then. And did anybody check, while all this was going on, who checked in on Valley? I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Forgive me. Is somebody checking in on Valley? Because they're checking in on the teacher, the child raper. Who's checking in on the victim? Oh, I'm sorry, he's not a victim. Sorry, Larry King. Got that going. This is just, it's really distasteful, it's disgusting, and it's horrible. And I did wanted to chime in and let everybody know, that's not, I mean, that goes on. This is not something that doesn't go, it goes on. My last thing I wanted to say is when they were sending out the letters to the student parents, nobody went up there with pitchforks and bats and to whoop her head for what she did to a child. These people don't care about children. I mean, my line.
Watch it now. Watch it now. That's trademark now. I got that on T-shirts and hats, man. Now watch it. Much obliged, ma'am. Hey. Now, to be truthful, now this happened old times, right? 20th century, new century. Penn State. I mentioned Jerry Sandusky. They did get out the pitchforks, the torches, but it was when they went and arrested old Jerry Sandusky. You've been raping boys and all. And Joe Paterno, coach of the football team, you knew about it. You in charge, or you should have known about it. Get on out of here. Man, they were so mad. They didn't go up there and say, we're going to bust Jerry Sandusky. Who fired Joe Pa? Who did it? We'll burn this whole place now. You put him back in it. You talking about who? We get to the rape children later. You bring Joe Pa back here right now. That's why I saw it. Matter of fact, it was 1 year later. Sandy Hook 2012. That's when trademark it, GTR, Gus T, Renegade. White people do not care about children. I'm putting Mary Kay with the Kango on that. Put it on T-shirts. One email, and then we'll get other folks who dialed in. Wonder if you wear that to school, they make you take it off. Even if you just put Mary Kay on. I can't live. Let's see. Email number 2. Greetings, Gus, listeners, callers. I'm finding this text constructive. Gives a lot of insight into the thinking and behaviors of average, unexceptional, racist man, racist woman, and racist child when non-white people are not around. I was asked by a non-white victim in a tragic arrangement what books I've been reading. He asked for recommendations in the past. I told him about If Loving You Is Wrong, and he recoiled. You need to read that book ASAP, brother. I don't know. Pieces of a puzzle? Interracial con game? I don't know. J.A. Rogers, sex and race? I don't know. Like, geez. Anyway, so, okay. I told him about if loving you or delectable Negro. I told him about Echo from Dealey Plaza. He seemed more receptive to that recommendation. Well, why not? Chapter 27. Mary Kay Letourneau and her now 13-year-old protege, Vili, seemed inseparable. Mary Kay asked Dick Letourneau for the keys to his new truck. She said she wanted to show Vili the stars. It is an abomination that she took such advantage of this child. White women. 2, it was a wedding reception. She never once spoke to any adults. She was always hovering around the kids' table, practicing her predatory skills. 3, a phone call from Mary Kay. I'm pregnant. Does Steve know? No, she said, adding that she had recently slept with Steve to buy some time. Michelle didn't fault her childhood friend for the deception. She is truly diabolical. Black hair, I think his... Oh, wait a minute. She says, will Steve believe the baby is his? She asked. Mary Kay doubted it. The baby will have black hair. Black hair. What is it? That curly, big mop of black curls. That's it. He'll have a mop of slick black curls. Ugh. I think his skin color will be more significant for sure. It's dark. Chapter 28, 1. Despite it all, she knew Steve still loved Mary Kay. Maybe the whole thing would blow over. What? I don't know what that means. He was still in denial, trying to make himself believe that he could raise the boy's baby. What? Nadine never believed the pregnancy was anything but intentional. They planned it. She planned it. I don't believe that Steve ever seriously considered raising that non-white baby. Put it up for adoption, maybe. That's what the mom, Mary Kay's mother, remember? Yeah, get to the orphanage, man. Get to the orphanage. Do something, because, you can't have no doctor. Chapter 29. October 1996. Mary Kay, standing on the front step, looking agitated and flustered. Behind her was a young boy. It is okay if he stays here with you? Danielle Johnson was flabbergasted. What the hell is he doing down there this late at night anyway? We talked about that. Okay. What? Was this a non-white child? Excellent question. The father seems basically cool with the situation as opposed to immediately going and picking up his child. Did the father even know Miss Danielle? That's a good question. It seemed like they had some sort of, maybe, like, I don't know if she would have accepted this child as readily if she didn't know him, like, at all. But, yeah. Anyway, seeing this is not Vili, I don't think. 2. Why would she call me to tell she didn't even know Molly? Mrs. Letourneau doesn't want you to come around anymore. She says you act like you're her best friend. She asks you to stop. Yeah, whatever, Mom. Just like a narcissist. I've thought that so many times reading this. That's so Mary Kay. No empathy, just use and discard people as if they are a pair of old shoes. See the Psychopathic Racial Personality and Other Essays by the late, great Dr. Bobby E. Wright. 3. Steve Letourneau had become violent and abusive towards Mary Kay to the point of hitting, kicking, and pushing her to the ground had been a shock to Michelle Jarvis. He would talk about where she had sexual relations with Vili to little children. I'm very suspicious of Steve. I bet he's not some innocent victim, probably engaged in all sorts of incorrect behavior, just not abusing Mary Kay. He is, of course, also a suspected racist. Say it twice. Chapter 30. Later, when she thought about it, the teacher dismissed it as just weird interaction, stuff between Mary and Vili. It was not anything unusual for Mary Letourneau. Nothing to see here. Suspected racists all seem conditioned to explain away all her bad behaviors, and I mean everything. This is another one, just like Columbine, since we talked about that, could have easily been interrupted way earlier. That's how the book starts. And many people had an opportunity to step in. Her family, so many white people had an opportunity. Hey, what? All right, Mary Kay, let's go. You put that child up, but let's go. We just taking college. Yeah, okay, college class. Let's go. Chapter 31. Whose baby is it? The teacher asked. Mary thought about it for a second and answered, actually, it's my baby. See, that's narcissism. Like, I did it by myself. It afforded her opportunity to do some secret stockpiling. deception is such a hallmark of the global system of racism, white supremacy. Chapter 32, Vili was just so happy, too, that she was going to have a baby that it was kind of awkward. He's a child. Of course, he's acting immaturely. Children having children. I mean, this is so disgraceful on so many levels. 2, Steve Letourneau ditched G.I. Joe action figures for an attitude and the grungy bad. Hey, man, this is Seattle, man. 206, man. This is the height of grunge. He's doing his Kurt Cobain, man. Ellen noticed how once he came over to play with her son, Scott, he'd abandoned the tough, cool thug. What do you mean? You ain't calling him thug, man. If anybody's a thug, it's Mary Kay Letourneau, lying and child rape. What's more thuggish than that? Gangbanger equals he's acting like a non. So why do so many people keep calling Vili a gangster? Like, they got the no snitch code. The Letourneaus, why aren't they gangsters? Why in the Letourneau fight? That's the gang right there. Political hookups and everything, just like the Godfather. No, it's Vili. Mom working, making apple pies in White Center, and she's got a gangbang. Get out of here. 3, reporting Mary in the past for anything seldom brought results, not even a reprimand that the teacher could remember. For whatever reason, the principal did not act. So why should she bother? She's a so-called pretty blonde. Lauren, say again for the record, she's not blonde. She's not blonde. I told you, you can see the black roots. Thus, she has carte blanche in the global system of racism, white supremacy. 4, the janitor didn't think much of the encounter and didn't report it. Neither did he report the time he saw Vili driving the teacher's van. Man, who are the people? You are so cool with a teacher, even if you're not having sex. Let me borrow your station wagon, drive to the store right quick. I don't like the tater tots in the cafeteria. Let me borrow your car right quick. Like, what? What? I need to go to this school, man. Can we do it? Let me get a real 206, man. I wish I'd gone to school out here, man. Let me see. He might have been afraid of being reprimanded for snitching. I didn't think about that if the janitor was a black person, like, oh, man, or non-white person. Snitching on the teacher. Was he non-white? Probably. Being accused of making a false accusation could lose your job, particularly if you are non-white. Facts. Chapter 33, Steve and Mary Letourneau. Late Kyle, Garner, and Linda. Linda bet for money. Her husband bet for sexual favors. Linda usually won. This seems like odd behavior for two people in love. What does it mean to be white? Everything is a competition, including sex. I also thought that was really curious for this book. That is about sexual degeneracy and raping a child. They are wagering on what's happening for sexual, or they're wagering on when they're going to arrive, the tardy Letourneaus, for sexual? What? At minimum, this is white culture through and through. The swinging and open, man. 34. Secret squirrel like splashed acid. Linda Gardner couldn't stand the secrecy and the silence surrounding Steve. Look at the alliteration there. Woo. And Mary Kay's faltering marriage. What was the frickin' deal? No one even mentioned them anymore. Secret Squirrel was a 1960s TV cartoon character, a squirrel portraying a James Bond-like spy. You two have to swear that you will not tell anybody or do anything. Swear it was with a 12-year-old. Do not tell anybody. Do not do anything about it. They all knew that fall. They all knew that Thanksgiving. They all knew Christmas. What does it mean to be white? No snitching. Snitches get stitches. 4. She also disclosed that the boy was Hispanic or Asian. Huh? That's a wide. Mexico or China? What? What? Family members had met with him when Mary Kay brought him to Alaska that summer. The horror of it all. He's something. It doesn't really matter. 5. A little while later, Dick Savanach, area administrator for the district, phoned Linda and calmly listened as she nervously spat out her story, but the man didn't ask many questions. He was strangely brief considering the subject. I'll check it out. I suspect he is thinking, how can I protect myself in the organization, not receive any blowback? If this is true, it could be, especially if this has been going on for a while, if we should have snipped this in the bud a long time ago. Yeep, hope I don't get fired. Book 3, Rapist. The initial horror upon hearing the charges, rape of a child, is natural, but the continued creation of a little boy victim and sick perpetrator has to stop. It's not a creation. It's the truth. And she said that in the video that we heard today. That was a quote from Mary Kay. She said that this is a quote from last century. 30 years later, she stuck, or at least a good 20 years later, she stuck to the exact same lie. Vili is not a victim. He wasn't a child. He was not a little boy. And I tell you, you sapheads, we took co-ed classes together. He was in college. He was a non-traditionally aged student. I told you, I wasn't even his teacher at the time. Lauren repeated that lie too today. I was not his teacher. How many times I got to tell you and get it through your thick skull? You just keep saying it over. And she get that attitude, boy. She riled up, boy, throw that blonde hair back and told y'all he was not a victim. Even Larry King said, okay, he wasn't a victim. Vili, he wasn't a victim. He wasn't a victim. Okay. Chapter 35, conventional wisdom had it that such sexual liaison happened between male teachers and female students, usually in a high school setting. There's so many of these cases in the media of white women teachers having sexual encounters, usually with male students, that it seems almost become cliche. They seem to be primarily white on white crimes, but I could be wrong. I will say, young lady that asked about that term sexual liaison, I think that's one of those, because a liaison is just we're meeting up, so this is we're meeting up for sexual activity. Sexual liaison makes it's kind of still a euphemism, because this is child rape, not a sexual liaison. If it's Mary Kay and Vili, this ain't none of this. This ain't no sexual liaison. This is child rape. 2, Vili can't even spell sexual liaison. Apparently, Mary Kay can't spell it either. 2, it was shortly after 10 a.m. when she came face to face with the boy. He was slight framed, a little over 5 feet, with a shy, almost sweet demeanor. He is the aggressor. Yep, I done told you he was not. Never mind. 3, he said they were in the den watching shows. He thinks Braveheart, a movie much heralded by suspected racist, violence, murder, rape. Boy, that Mel Gibson, they paint that brother blue and he get out that boy. 4, he said she started talking to him about psychics and stuff like that. That a psychic she supposedly talked to said she was going to have a hard life and told Mary that she was going to meet someone with dark skin. I'm sorry. Gene Dixon was the psychic, perhaps the dark. Never mind. 5, his brother, tall, dark, handsome. 5, his brother had walked into the bedroom at Normandy Park House one time and saw them together on the bed. Oof. That's why he get the car all the time. He was blackmailing. Look here, Mary Kay. I'm going to call the police. I seen what you're doing. You going to let me get that car. I'm going to drive around. I'm going to Seattle. Gregg Olsen ain't talking about I'm sorry. 7, the music teacher scooped Mary Kay up in the arms and told her she'd be all right. That night, there were tears and phone calls. Would there have been the same reaction if there was a white male child? Facts. I'll pause here. Folks who dialed in, Irie, Lauren, retired firefighter, if you have questions on audio segment 2, feel free.
Hello?
I'll practice courtesy and let the ladies go before me.
Much obliged. Heard Irie already.
Yeah. I want to make this quick because I know we all have a lot to say. How does a person get charged with rape and then they get to go by their friend's house after they go to the police station and get interrogated? You don't have to stay. They don't hold you for a bond hearing. I don't know. That what happened? Did I hear right? She went to the police station. After she was arrested at school. She was charged with rape. She was interrogated, and then she went by some woman's house after. Okay. I don't know. I think I can't even remember the other stuff I was gonna say at this point. I'll mute my line. Thanks.
Now come on, Miss Irie. You being, they say that about us, being ignorant black person. You know, they done told you, Mr. Olsen done told us about 8,000 times. This is a perfect all-American blonde white woman. Why is she not going to be released on her own recognizant? She's not no flight. Ooh. I was going to say she won't no flight risk. I got to retract that. Woo! Let me just say what I
just
said
one other
before.
thing, Gus. I apologize.
Well, just you know, we're gonna let them. If this had been a black person, if it had been you raping children down there in Louisiana, yes, you'd have been locked up until we get through with everything. But we're not gonna lock up no Mary Kay till we go ahead and prove her guilty for sure. You had more?
I apologize. I didn't realize you were about to talk. Yeah, just one other thing. I just wanted to say for the record, love, the misuse of the word love in this particular book, love is a synonym for fornication under consent of the king. I'm trying to be respectful to your podcast, so you know what word I'm really trying to say.
Oh, it's a lot of that. It's a lot of that in the system of white supremacy, racism, just using LOVE for a whole lot of, crass and incorrect, sometimes criminal conduct. For sure. For sure. Love being a synonym for child rape in this book. I mean, come on. Come on. Let's see. Lauren, did you have commentary?
Yes, sir, I do. Thank you for allowing me to speak. So this was on page, well, I don't know if the page number is accurate, but it said, at his wife's urging, Kyle phoned Steve's younger sister. So Secret Squirrel and her husband are trying to figure out what's going on, right? And it said, everyone in the family had known about it for months. It started in September when Steve discovered the love letters and journal entries written by Mary Kay. So this lady is raping a child and writing about it in her journal. And it said he confronted the boy at his house and told him to back off his wife. Okay. So this person leaves his residence, goes to a 12-year-old's residence, and makes it seem like it's his fault. That's so interesting. And it said the grandpa was going to call the police but decided not to because of the impact it would have on his 4 grandchildren. So Linda Gardner, the one they keep calling Secret Squirrel, she calls and reports it, right? Well, first it says she knew Mary Kay would lose her job and that prison was a possibility. She had separated Mary Kay, the wife and mother, from Mary Kay, the woman who was having sex with a boy. Now, how many white people knew before one decided to report it? Like, I'm not sure how many white people in his family, it was 15, 20, 30, but a lot of white people knew about this before one decides, okay, this should be reported. And it says she dialed the number for Child Protective Services, gave her name and phone number, told her story. And they say, you're going to have to call the school district and talk to them because she's a teacher. Linda was flabbergasted and she hung up. Okay, why did she call CPS and not the police or law enforcement? Like, that's a really interesting choice. The quotes from the beginning of book 3, and book 3 is called Rapist. It says, this is a quote from Mary Kay Letourneau. It says, I think what I've done is horrible, and I wouldn't want anyone to think I believe it's acceptable. It's not. And she said this in a July 1997 interview with the Seattle Times. Then next it says, the initial horror upon hearing the charges rape of a child is natural, but the continued creation of a little boy victim and sick perpetrator has to stop, ! Now that's Mary Kay Letourneau in a press release, November 1997. Those statements seem contradictory. It kind of, when I saw the interview she did, and I just don't think that she thought her actions were incorrect. I don't think she thought that. Let me see. Okay. So after it gets reported, and there's a lady named Susan Murphy. It said a teacher in the district since 1969, in the middle of a 3-year term as president of the HEA, Susan Murphy had never heard of a female teacher becoming pregnant by a student. She caught her breath as the superintendent told her what little he knew. It was a family member who made the phone call to the district, and at that moment, district officials were doing all they could to either verify or disprove the charges. And she said, it says Susan hoped that the internal investigation and any police involvement would clear the teacher without embarrassment and without long-term career damage. Like, that's so interesting. She didn't hope that the investigation would disclose what had actually happened or that the child hadn't actually been harmed. She just didn't want the teacher to be embarrassed or to sustain any damage to her career. Let me see. Oh, okay. When the detective pressed Mary Kay for the identity of the father of the baby she was so visibly carrying, the teacher said there was a 99.9% chance it was not Steve. I told her at the time that I hoped it would be her husband's and not a 13-year-old child's baby. She said she did not want it to be her husband's. Wow. She's actually saying to law enforcement that she wanted it to be Vili's baby. Like, that seems crazy. Like, I'm not calling it crazy, but I don't understand why she would want such a thing. Mary Kay called her father and told him what happened. John Schmitz promised he'd come see his daughter. He'd bring her a car because Steve would have the van. It's like, all right, you had sex with a child, daddy's going to bring you a car. The misspelling. Steve handed over sheets of papers, notes scrawled on scraps, comments made on envelopes. The author was his wife, Mary Kay. But was the writer the person so many admired and loved? There were 6 pages of list of song titles and the recording artist, but oddly for a school teacher, names were horribly misspelled. And, you know, that's just really weird. And I thought, you know, because they called, they said Vili was illiterate in the last session. So I'm just like wondering, what does that mean? Like, any person can occasionally misspell a word, but excessive misspelling implies that she might actually have an issue with reading and writing. And that kind of made me think, like, maybe that's why she concentrated on art so much in the class, because maybe she's just not that good at teaching people how to read and write if she doesn't do it well. The notes, right? One of the notes Vili had written, who said you can put your legs raped around me? Now, I think he was trying to write wrapped, but he wrote raped. I think that's a Freudian slip. So the author writes, who had been in control of the relationship? For those who bothered to consider the tiny note, a different scenario was possible. Vili Fualaau was in charge, the 12-year-old. Other missives and writings indicated that Vili called Mary when he wanted sex. He allowed her to see him when it was convenient and didn't interfere with hanging out with his buddies or the young girls he preferred. Man, I'm not sure, like, is the author actually disparaging Vili for wanting to be with other people his own age? I'm not. That was an interesting little segment right there. Oh, when there's 2 white people, Joe and Fran, okay? And it says she didn't think what Mary had done was okay by any stretch. Even if you are unhappy with your spouse, it's not grounds for having a relationship with a child, even if you think you might be in love with him. Or are you just grasping for attention? I really think she has a problem, Fran said. Her husband didn't disagree. I thought that was written in an unusual manner. Like, why didn't the author just say her husband agreed? If that would have been an accurate statement, I don't know. And just not that many white people in this text take the position that what Mary Kay Letourneau is doing is incorrect, that it's rape of a child. You don't, I mean, we've only heard that a couple of times. Let me see. The police had been by to make sure no other children had been molested by their favorite teacher. That's really important. And also, I don't think I've seen that word too many times in the book. Maybe I'm just being silly and molested has been in the book a lot of times, and I haven't noticed. I don't know. That's all I have right now. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Molest is in the book on 13 pages. Now again, love is in the book 300 times. So, any hoodles. We have heard it a few times already, and I do mean a few. But it is on 13 pages in the book. So in comparison, the word rape is in the book, I think, close to 30 times. Love, 300. And I think Blond is in the book about 24 times. So molest is a lot lower. We haven't heard it too many times. It'll come up a few more times as we proceed through the text. Retired firefighter?
Yes, sir. I was listening to Miss Irene, and it's ironic but it is constructive and healthy that non-white people use logic in making their decisions or thoughts, because she and I came up with some of the same things. For instance, her commentary on love, and I have down here is one of the most misused words ever, the term love, and also her first thoughts on and I had it, law enforcement. They let her go home. I'm thinking for a crime period, but a crime of that magnitude, they let her go home and whatnot instead of immediately put her under arrest right in the cafeteria, hands behind the back, that sort of thing, and escort her out of the school. But you already mentioned it, her being a white person, a white female on top of that. That had a lot to do with why it was such a slow response. Speaking of response, once the other family members and people who knowing about the crime, most were trying to conceal it once they knew that it was being exposed to the public. They were trying to conceal it, and that's a typical thing that takes place, especially with white people, because they are concerned about their image. As far as that concerned, I'm surprised that Steve didn't kill not only Mary Kay, but Billy, and in some cases, probably the baby. Just a couple of months ago down here, a white male got into a domestic dispute with his wife and chased her down the street. She ran into the house of a neighbor. He not only killed her, he killed the neighbor. And in turn, he didn't kill the child that was running along with the mother. He just took the child, and he was subsequently arrested the next day by law enforcement, of course. After reporting the crime, the reaction was somewhat low-key. That goes into the whole thing about her not being immediately arrested. It could have been a situation where they took in and started questioning her, and she would have broke down if they were really doing their job. And she would have never left the precinct or the county jail or whatever steps that taken as far as law enforcement is concerned. I have down here, as it was stated, most of the sex crimes take place on the high school level, with the victims being a female and the perpetrators being a male. But there are a growing amount of cases that where it's actually opposite, where that takes place, and this is one of the ones that was highlighted very early. And it actually went national. I have down here also, I do think this book reading that Mary Kay knows she was having sex with a. She was. I think she understood that she was having sex, not only with a child but with a non-white person, consciously or unconsciously practicing racism. The writer, I got some criticisms on him. This book, it seems like he's trying to make Mary Kay the victim, and he's playing it out. And I don't think this book is meant for us to be reading. I think he planned for this book to be read by other white people, because it's almost like he's trying to push it into being a novel. It doesn't take that much to understand this white woman has committed a crime, one of the most heinous crimes that a person can commit on another person, and should be in jail. And I would say, like I said before, sentenced to death, and it already been carried out. Last but not least, the whole term called puppy love makes me want to vomit. I just have down here complete foolishness, about this term that is called puppy love. But anyway, that's all I have to say. Thanks everybody for listening.
Well, see, retired firefighter in Florida is not no animal lover, but much obliged, retired firefighter in Florida. Well, I don't know. We haven't had tons of folks say that they think Mary Kay has been the victim. We'll have to see as we continue through, because we have a lot of book left, that they think Mary Kay has been read like the victim in the book. I definitely think the TV series and some other products that I've seen, that is for sure the case. I know one thing. The victim ain't Vili. That is consistent, widespread. Maybe it is Mary Kay. Maybe she's the victim. Maybe Vili raped her. But Vili ain't no victim. Any hoodles, much obliged, retired firefighter in Florida. Let's see, quickly, before we wrap up, let's see, anything? Oh, he says, the person who wrote in quickly, he says, Tandy Matson had a hard time seeing what happened between the teacher and student as a terrible crime. Nick Matson had a different take. It's child rape. It may be puppy love, she thought, and I can't say it was his first time. I heard he's in a gang. Simply astounding how so many people classified as white did not have a big problem with this, going so far as to suggest that Vili was sexually active prior to Mary Kay and that he was part of a gang. Guess I should not be surprised by now. Just a bunch of racists doing what they do best, practicing racism, white supremacy. The police had been by to make sure no other children had been molested by their favorite teacher. The school made offers of crisis counseling for those who needed it. Maybe they should investigate all the teachers, not just Mary Kay, since it seems some may have not had that much of a problem with what she did. That might be good to think about as well. Anyway, oh, wait a minute. Last thing he says, as for Vili, he was still in class at Cascade Middle School. Shorewood music teacher Beth Adair wrote a note to Mary Kay describing how Vili was spaced out and subdued. This seems incorrect to me, talking to a child rapist about her victim. Facts. 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 If Leroy had been accused of raping a white female of any age, I cannot imagine a galaxy where they would let him know, well, Rebecca, today she looked a little bit better. And what? What? Come on. Let's see. Anything I need to get in before we wrap up today out of notes on the section? Kyle and Linda got in the hot tub to talk about what happened. See, white people doing it tough out here in Puget Sound. Let's see. So just the no snitch policy is so massive, like that. And it's not just the family that took the no snitch policy and we care about Mary Kay or we care about Steve or whatever. But it was enforcement officers and the teacher who said, I saw the child driving the van. Even if you do say anything, they don't do nothing. It's blonde Mary Kay. What does it mean to be white? This could have been nipped in the bud. Even with Columbine, like to keep seeing this. This is not, somebody pilfered paper clips from the school or made illegal long distance phone calls. This is child rape. Columbine, it was bombs and blowing up the school, killing people. And the same, let white people get away with all kinds of crimes. Tim McVeigh, excuse me, I meant Jay Dahmer, could have been stopped. Anything else? Even the response when they called in to these folks and like, Mary Kay is up to something. Oh, somebody get back to you. What I said, white people do not care about children. I should have that 1997 interview where Mary Kay talks about, he's not a victim and all the rest of it. I should be able to get that so we can get all the details of what she told the Seattle Times way back when. Other than that, I agree wholeheartedly. I think that was Lauren who said Mary Kay doesn't think she did anything wrong. That is consistent through all the decades, all the way up to her passing. She did not think she did anything at all wrong. We were in love. He pursued me. He was looking up my dress. He was not a victim. He wasn't my student. What do you mean I didn't do that? What's wrong with love? If loving you is wrong, it still ain't the title. Mommy and Daddy fight by the brown boy. But she didn't do nothing wrong. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? He was pursuing me, for one. And I just fell in love with, short, dark, handsome boy. That's all. What's wrong with that? And then we got married. What do you mean? She didn't think she did nothing wrong, and loved the narcissism and manipulation of all that. Exactly what Fuller said when he informed me about this case. He said, white people, Mary Kay, they enjoy the childlike state of non-white people. If he's illiterate, hey, even better. Means you won't do no reading. Somebody come to you and say, hey, Vili, you should get this interracial con game. It might speak to you. Put that down, Vili. You can't even, but yeah, it hurts your head when you read. Put it down. Put it down. We will be here tomorrow. Compensatory call-in. Catch up on what has transpired over the past 7 days. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Much obliged for everyone tuning in. Hopefully worthy of your Friday evening. Sobriety would be best under conditions of white supremacy. I do think it's important what people said as well about how Mary Kay would adultify the children, because that's been a theme throughout the book. Some of the children that said previously she treated us like adults, and then we heard today the children in elementary school, we don't call her Miss Letourneau, Mrs. Letourneau. Mary Kay. Mary, what'd it do? These are 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds. Like, wait a minute. That right there. There ain't no boundaries. That means would come to say, ain't no boundaries. That's right there. We just start pulling all these up. Ain't no boundaries, see? But I suspect another form of that adultification, alcohol. See, y'all little adults here, come on, Mary Kay, cool. Come get a little sip. Just get a little sip. You can drive the vehicle too. You can get sobriety would be best. Creator, we ask, remind us not to waste non-white people's time and energy. Help us maximize our time and energy to replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. Stop saying not all white people are racist. Stop name-calling black people. Stop producing throwaway offspring to be raped by Mary Kay. replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cows signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim.
Yeah. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.